Welcome to Benno and Hamflett in Your House, a podcast reviewing WWE's iconic new generation B shows in order from the bust back to the boom. I'm Michael Hamflett.
And I'm Benno. I'm Michael. It's In Your House 5. Merry Christmas, I should probably say. It's season beatings times. What better time to take a trip to Hershey, Pennsylvania? That's where I always wanted to spend my Christmases here in March. That's kind of how it goes with our with the way we've laid this calendar in. But yeah, how's your Christmas going, mate? You a fan of Hershey's? I've got many questions about this one.
Well, yeah, this is it. We'd normally talk about the location, and from the UK to here, Hershey is, I guess, to
just chocolate.
That's it. To sort of imagine that, like, there's a massive chocolate factory, not like Cadbury World like we've got in Birmingham in the UK, but like the one that Bart visits in The Simpsons, where you can just dive into the pool of chocolate and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
I have to know. So I grew up in North Yorkshire near the McCain's chip factory, and when you would drive through the little town where the chip factory was, there was this like odd sort of oven chip smell that permeated the air. So I've got to know: do you think Hershey smells of sick? Because I don't want to start a chocolate culture war, but like, we kind of know better. We've lived a better life than to just settle for Hershey's chocolate here in the UK, haven't we?
it's true. Like, to be honest, unfortunately, you bring up bad memories because my nan and granddad used to live down the road from a leather factory, so that's all you'd smell in the air, and it wasn't quite as nice a smell. For all honest, actually, maybe slightly nicer than Hershey's, but yeah, I do just picture that. I picture The Simpsons. I picture Homer, taking bites out of the mailbox and things like that, and it being made of it. I'm sure the actual Hershey, Pennsylvania, isn't as nice as the Hershey store in beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada. There's one in Times Square as well, isn't there? I think there's one there as well. But yeah, in my head, it's just that all over. That's all they've got. But yeah, it's not quite Cadbury's, is it, mate? It's not quite on the level.
Not really. And obviously, as we would find out on this show as well, the people of Birmingham I find to be a very welcoming bunch in our second city here in the UK. But the people of Pennsylvania, it's not just Philadelphia where the people of Pennsylvania are a little bit more extreme. And we didn't review the King of the Ring 1995 and how there was something of a protest vote from the fans in Pennsylvania for the WWF, but we kind of we get our own version from a select bunch on the hard camera for the duration of the show. And I found myself forgetting we were in Hershey and feeling like we were in Philly.
Yeah, it feels like Philly. Philly's the only part of Pennsylvania I've been to. I went to a couple of ROH shows there years and years ago. It's when I went to see Joe Kobashi. If you listen to GRAPPL, you'll have heard me wax lyrical about that trip. I got a lift home actually from the show in from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. From the currently in the news, Gabe Sapolsky, who's obviously running WWE's Evolve. Yeah, he gave us a tour around all the sites. Basically, every time we'd be driving past stuff, he was taking us to the bus station. Be like, did you ever want to see the Rocky Steps, Ben? I'll go, yeah, and he go, there they are. Did you ever want to see the Liberty Bell, Ben? There it is. I think that's in Philly. That's one of the things in Philly.
Yeah,
and we just saw them through a dimly lit car window in Gabe Sapolsky's car that may or may not have been filled with McDonald's wrappers. Man after my own heart there. But yeah, that's the only bit of Philly I've seen, to be honest. Just that, where the venues are and where that was. But the people were very rough edged. It actually did feel a little bit away from home, being from Liverpool. Yeah. I think our people are a bit like that too. And it kind of works. There's a lot of it's like the New York, I'm walking here kind of thing, but with a Philly accent instead. That's very much the impression I got of the place too.
I know what you mean, actually. I had a WrestleMania trip, obviously, around Philadelphia for WrestleMania 40. And yeah, the Liberty Bell, the Rocky Steps, and there's the ECW arena, as many sort of wrestling and tourist places as whatever you can fit in that really busy week and all that sort of thing. But I agree with you. For all the reviews from Americans that would say it was a little bit gritty or a little bit rough, or a show like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia gives you certain impressions, and watching wrestling from the 90s gives you certain impressions. Maybe we're just a bit gritty and miserable over here too, because I felt a bit of a kinship with it as a place. It kind of made sense to me. It didn't hide its rough edges like a lot of American places try to, and I kind of liked it for that.
I think that's true of anywhere, though, isn't it? It's like my mate Carl, who's a listener to this. Hello to GRAPPL Carl. He once went to Berlin and he swore behind to me that there were just no bars in Berlin. Somehow he'd gone to Berlin, the capital of Germany, and hadn't found a bar. Said, no, they're all in hotels. I was like, I feel like you just turned right when you should have turned left at some point, and just didn't turn back. It's like if you came to Liverpool, you'd end up in the docks, before they build Everton's ground, and not realise there's an entire city centre if you went left out of the train station. Like, I think that's possible. You could have two completely different experiences of the same place. But yeah, it is a good or bad. I can see that with Philly and with Pennsylvania and in general. What is the Hershey Park Arena still going? Is that still a thing?
I think it is. It's going to have one of them stupid names now, isn't it? It's going to have been renamed in there. I mean, I suppose Hershey's is itself a brand, but I'm sure they've mentioned when they've been close to like the chocolate factory itself or like all the chocolate branding. I feel like the Hershey Park one's still going. There's also a little bit of a connection. I don't know if you remember this. Do you remember? It's something of a sacred text in these parts. The Wrestling by Simon Garfield.
Oh yeah,
book that came out. There's that tiny passage where he speaks to WWF wrestlers, and I think Triple H is like one of the people that speaks. I think Mabel might be another one, but there's like 3 or 4 guys. He mentions, without mentioning the name of the show, he says, we were in a show in Hershey, Pennsylvania in December 1995. So it's my belief that Simon Garfield was doing his interviews for the Wrestling at In Your House 5 Seasons Beatings.
And the names fit as well, don't they? Mabel, Triple H, all the same guys that are there. I think he helped spray paint BSK on the Undertaker's casket list for night to help Mabel out. Who knows? Maybe he was
absolutely loved it, man. Loved it.
I've got that book upstairs. I need to give it a reread at some point. But yeah, like I mentioned, as well as being in Pennsylvania, we are on the road to Christmas. It is December 17th, 1995, here at the Hershey Park Arena. So they are very, very much leaning into it, like we said on the last episode of the Housekeeping, and you can get that on the feed if you haven't heard it yet, where we filled in the gaps between the last In Your House and this one. Talked a bit of Survivor Series 1995 along the way as well. They managed to turn Father Christmas heel. That's just the levels we were at with creative. You get Tweener Diesel on the positive end, and you get heel Santa Claus on the negative end there, unfortunately, which of course we're going to be getting into today as well. But that's the world we're in. It's not a great, as far as the numbers go, not a great pay-per-view. 7,289 packed themselves here into the Hershey Park Arena, which is, in fact, still going. Just saw that on Wiki. Still called that as well. Kept the name. Play some hockey there and among other sports. 84,000 at pay-per-view, though. Down even from the 90 last time. We said last time was the drags. I think this might well be it. Although they still, like modern day, they still came out in the numbers for the paper. Did the good people of Hershey?
Yeah, we're into the record breaking period, but for all the wrong reasons, aren't we? The polar opposite of WWE business. As we record this in real time, we are witnessing the nadir. I thought in the summer, covering In Your House 2, when we were talking about the water coolers getting taken out and the like. But the water cooler companies hadn't reckoned on Davy Boy Smith's lack of drawing power. So at this point,
why not try again?
Well, the phrase "everything but the kitchen sink." I wonder if now the water coolers have gone, they're just ripping out the taps as well. It's like, right, nobody gets any drinking water until somebody draws once again.
Well, it's one of them. I think the blame probably does lie at Davy's feet. But maybe this explains why the pay-per-view buy rate's low, but the walk-up's quite good. Our good friends at WWF Wrestling One managed to pull out the lovely advertisement, the leaflet that went out locally. Look at this beautiful thing. World Wrestling Federation presents at the Hershey Park Arena every minute of the action. And it's live. Big On Your House logo. Diesel, Bret, Sean, and The Undertaker, all pictured. Tickets available on sale Saturday, October 28th. They went on sale $18, $14, and $11. $11 ticket. You'd snatch the hand off for it, wouldn't you, at that point?
Oh my God, yeah.
It explains itself, doesn't it, how they say this sold so well? All the stars on the poster, mate.
That's it, yeah. One of the main eventers nowhere to be found. Something I look at when I see this poster. As you know, in 1995, our friend there in the bottom left-hand corner, Shawn Michaels, was a massive fan of the Blackburn Rovers. And I wonder if the inspiration of this poster informed Martin Tyler's iconic commentary, because I can hear him on Sky Sports saying, "We're at the Hershey Park Arena, every minute of the action, and it's live." I wonder if it was born out of this poster here, because that feels very American, and they were years in front.
Definitely. I'd love to have. if again, I'm in the midst of the movement, people might have noticed for the last Housekeeping and this show, I'm in a bit of a different setup than I usually am. If you find me in my next setup and it's just full of posters like this behind me, just on my wall, like perfect wall decoration. I love these like old like leaflet type posters that would get plastered everywhere. I'm sure they were in all the local papers and such. It was very hand to mouth business at that point, wasn't it, when it came to shifting these different things. But I will say, although Davey didn't make the as far as the leaflet goes and the flyer and the postering goes, he does make the cover of this lovely thing, which is the VHS. We're about to talk today. The In Your House 5 VHS with our Davey. Bit of Hunter on the sleeve as well. Looking well, mate. We've gone yellow and pink for this one. Kind of fits with the, as we talked about on Housekeeping, the era we're now in, the Bret Hart world champion era. Possibly, man in the middle between Diesel and Shawn, but we'll get there as well. But yeah, what you make of this one, Davey? Front and center once again. I wonder if it affected In Your House 5 VHS sales as well as pay-per-view buys.
Well, yeah, it's marginally better than In Your House 4 because the flags aren't anywhere near as confusing this time. It does feel like they've got that one picture of Bulldog and they love it because it's definitely in from In Your House 4. Yes. It's him at the front. It's the same picture on the back, but they've flipped it so his arms are posed in a different way.
Mirrored it. Didn't know they had the tech to do that.
This is it. And you can see quite a squashed Triple H on the spine of the video. But I don't know if this is easy for you to do, but are you able... So look, obviously there's Bulldog, same picture twice, and Triple H. But you're able to go back to that flyer just a second, the last one we were just looking at, in contrast to it. Yeah, that flyer there. I know we said 1995, they had a bit of a problem with it being a bit of a babyface territory, but they could have put one heel on the poster.
That's true, actually. Yeah, it's still all the faces.
There's no baddies.
The baddies sell the videos, mate. That's what it is. The faces get you in the bill.
It, yeah. Absolutely no baddies, yeah. So I don't mind, even though they've only got one Bulldog picture, I suppose at least he is actually there.
One time he turned up for the photo shoot.
I am begging once again, Joe Biden meme, or Bernie Sanders meme, I'm asking once again, that old WWF logo that is misaligned on the front cover, where it says, see Bret Hitman Hart battle his brother, British Bulldog, for the WWF Championship. Get me the new generation logo and align it properly because that's a nightmare to look at. And just the way they list those matches, the different, like the font colors changing, and there being no sort of alignment based on whether it's a versus or a wrestler's name, whatever. It's high tech for 95, I suppose, but I just wish somebody would have thought a little bit about the design at the time. They were on a budget, and a pretty tight one, I guess.
And they had to fit Buddy Landell in, they had to get that name in there somewhere. Again, spoilers for the show we're about to get into. I always appreciate it as well. I remember seeing this one advertised, and it's like the SummerSlam '88, isn't it? When you see that little 15 in the corner, it's like, ooh, what's going on here? Bit of danger here. What's what? It just makes you want it more, doesn't it? It's like I remember being a kid and convincing is No Holds Barred in 18. I'm pretty sure it is, and convincing me dad to get me No Holds Barred, and him going, it's an 18, but it's only wrestling, so I'm not going to pay attention to it. It was a great little hoodwink because dads at the time wouldn't have bought that anything could possibly happen in wrestling that wasn't safe for watching, which was again, when I got a little bit older, I convinced my dad to order from a tape trade of the IWA King of the Death matches with Cactus Jack and Terry Funk on it, because again, it was wrestling. What could go wrong? A bit of blood, get used to it at this point. But it's a rare one, a 15 sighting on one of these Silver Vision VHSs.
Just quickly while I remember, because I feel like, did we all buy that tape off the tape trader and then sit through a bunch of boring slog matches just to see the Cactus Jack stuff that you'd already seen clips of in his build-up to his matches in the WWF? Everybody had it, the little grey border around it, like with the picture of Cactus Jack holding up the flaming 2x4, I think it was, in the white T-shirt. Yeah, it's just nice to know. Like the universal experience of buying that tape.
We all had that same experience, and it all ended the same way with that whimper of those fireworks at the end of it, which he describes in his book. So I don't know why I expected it to be any different when I actually got to see it myself. But yeah, it was one of those moments, wasn't it, where it was like, again, we're of a similar age, where you're thinking like, I'm an older wrestling fan now. This is the type of stuff proper hardcore wrestling fans like us. There's blood, and it's a bit more real and stuff. And realizing, it's also a bit shit, and the production's crap. And it's boring, and I can barely see anything that's going on. But I can tell my mates have got it. I've got this amazing rare videotape. Oh, yeah. We all graduate into being that type of fan.
I'm so glad you mentioned the 15 rating, which obviously, we're going to get to. It's for blood. And as you say, SummerSlam 88, it's when Ron Bass is putting the spikes across Beefcake's head. WrestleMania 13 being an 18. I may as well have been asking my parents to buy me a porn mag from Woolworths. The 18 being on a Silvervision cassette with Sid and The Undertaker on the cut. Like, it looked incredible to see that 18 rating. It was on it. It was like a video nasty WrestleMania 13 with that 18 rating on it.
Oh, but you've got me in a sidebar now because you say being like trying to buy porn in a magazine shop. Not that I would ever have done such a thing when I was about 13 or so. But like, do you remember, obviously, when the Switch comes and trying to buy like Raw magazine, and it'd have like a picture like Sable on the front with like basically naked or Sunny on some of the WWF magazines around this time, because we are, again, the 15 rating's a sign of some of the things to come in 96, which has some adult themes. I remember pulling out a picture of Sunny from the insert of WWF magazine in 1996 and putting it on my wall. Lasted about an hour before my mum tore it down. She's probably right, to be fair. Probably shouldn't have been up on my wall when I was 12. But I thought it was cool. But like in those shops, having that moment where they were like, this is a wrestling magazine, right? Because they'd know my mum and dad. And like, yeah, it is. It's a wrestling magazine, honestly. That you were starting to lose that argument into 1996. It was starting to look more and more ropey.
I'm not saying I know the exact magazine and poster that you're talking about off the top of my head, but let's just say that poster of the golden-haired fox, Sunny herself, from that orange and green cover magazine. I remember it well.
That's exactly
I know the exact one you're talking about.
It was fine when I had Shawn Michaels on my ball, though. Well, that wasn't a problem. He was topless. What's wrong with that?
I remember the tipping point for me in Raw magazine, because I used to order it into a newsagent's, and then sometimes like my dad would pick it up from the newsagent's on his way home from work for me if he knew it was coming in. And I remember the tipping point of him saying, I'm not getting that anymore. Like, you can keep your order, but I'm not picking it up for you anymore. You have to go get that yourself. It was the 1996 one where like, I think it's December 96, where Sunny is in lingerie and the Raw magazine, the headline is like, they're Sunny's secrets and they're raw. And it's just porn. It's just like the language is porn. The imagery is porn. It just says raw in massive letters. And I'm picturing me dad not wanting to, like, as at this point, a father of 3, well past the point that he's in these shame years of his life. Can I have me son's magazine, please? And this bloke handing him over what looks like grumble over the counter. I'm out. Get it yourself.
Look, and then I think, Crook, wrestling made us men. Maybe the type of men we are tells you everything you need to know, but definitely grew up a bit more during these periods.
And not a moment too soon, because it was only in early 1998 that I bought 2 copies of the January-February edition, because if I was going to get a poster of Shawn Michaels completely bolloco, I wanted to keep one in a plastic wrap because I knew it would be worth a few bob. So... That's a little fact about me. I've got, to this day, in a plastic wallet, I've got the open edition of the magazine where I can look at Shawn Michaels naked but for the Winged Eagle anytime I want. And I've got a plastic wrap edition, because for safekeeping, innit? So I need something to hand down to my kids when I'm old. I'm going to say, like, kids, open up the dusty chest and you'll find the treasure that will put your own children into houses and through university. What is it, Dad? It's Shawn Michaels, completely bolloco, but with the belt in front of his dick and balls. Yeah, thanks, Dad. Yeah, we've seen it on the internet. Yeah.
I just picture, like Vince McMahon with his picture of himself up in his living room, in your living room, just having above the fireplace, Shawn with the belt. Sounds like a great living room, to be fair. It'd be a strange house to grow up in as well, but yeah. These are the things we had to put up with. Same with Power Slam. When you're buying that, they'd have some ropey front covers as well.
Don't get me wrong here. I suffered substantially less shame buying a 1996 Raw magazine with Shawn or Sunny on the cover than I did buying a 2009 one with Randy Orton on the cover. I know which one I was hiding, and it wasn't Shawn Michaels.
That came the point where it's like during this period, like my corner shop was not automatically stocking WWF magazine. I had to put like a special order in for it to be hidden behind the back. Same with when I discovered WCW magazine was a thing in 1996. It was a special order that went there. For a while, it was front of house, wasn't it? You get it in every WH Smith you went to, every newsagent you went to. But yeah, by late 2000s, you're back into that special order category, aren't you? Where you have to have that awkward conversation with the man in the shop every time you moved house.
It was. I remember that when WCW magazine came back, it was advertised on the back of Power Slam. Otherwise, I would have never known it existed. And there must have been some sort of money changing hands where it's like, you scratch our back, we'll scratch yours. Because we talk about this with this exact period, the videos being less and less and less in the shops, the magazines just not being front of house anymore. I don't know why, as a kid, I didn't equate that to. There's nobody into this but me, because nobody's talking about it in the playground, and I have to put in a special order to get 3 magazines. But that was the way it was.
It's the type of thing where if you saw a kid in school who also had one of the magazines, they couldn't get rid of you then. You were automatically best friends because you were the two who were still happening to watch this stuff or cared what was going on, and you'd bore all your other mates with it as well. We've been through a few of those periods in our lives, but we're still here. We're still survivors, and things are about to turn around, and I think the cover, and like I say, the 15 rating is a bit of a sign of some changes, I would say, as we go through this show we're going to talk about today. And obviously, like I mentioned before, if you haven't listened yet, give a listen to Housekeeping. We go through the background to this show, what happened at Survivor Series 1985. In short terms, Diesel's a tweener now, Bret Hart is the world champion now, and Shawn Michaels is dead. Okay, he's fine. But Diesel's acting like he's dead. But yeah, we have obviously the whole post-concussion syndrome angle and everything that came out to it as well. But we'll be covering a lot of that as we go through the show today. We're not quite, and we are almost there when it comes to the pre-show fodder. The what you call the free-for-alls are coming come January 1996. So we look forward to covering them. Fortunately, we don't have the footage of Savio Vega versus Bob Backlund. Netflix need to get the house in order. They maybe sit through some adverts when I was watching this show. I don't know if they did the same thing to you. I had to watch some New Balance trainers adverts in between Pettingill as I was working my way through this one, but can't give me Savio Vega versus Bob Backlund. Shame on you, Netflix.
Yeah, I don't know what's worse, a New Balance advert for trainers or Doc Hendricks trying to flog those cardboard cutouts of Bret and Shawn from In Your House 4. I honestly don't know which is sort of scarier. I've just got to say this before we get into the show proper, Benno. It wouldn't be a Benno and Hamflett In Your House full review now, would it, without Logo Watch? And you mentioned how the 15 rating speaks to this being a bit more adult theme. Well, the logo itself has grown up. Because where previously it's snuck in through the window or it's plonked itself on the sofa ready to watch the show. Not for In Your House 5, mate. No. The logo is in the house. The door gets hit by snowballs from some kids. The logo pops his head out the door, bollocks the kids, and then slams the door shut. The snowballs get let in, and so do we. So at this point, is the In Your House logo glad to have you as a guest, or is it pissed off and wanting you to go home? I don't know.
I think it's annoyed that you haven't brought 5 of your friends because they're looking at the pay-per-view numbers and going, come on, let's sort it out. I had that. I absolutely love that. It's one of them, though, isn't it? We've had a Valentine's Day themed In Your House. We've had, was it a Mother's Day themed In Your House? We're doing the full gambit. Christmas. Now that works as well. It's Christmas on. They could have gone a little bit further, though. I feel like they could have gotten some Christmassy colours for the logo. It's kind of just a bit basic, isn't it? But it just lives in the house now, mate, rent-free. That's pretty much where we are with it.
There's another December to go. Who knows what we're going to get this time next year in Your House lore. Yeah. It's all still to play for.
Very true. But yeah, to get into the show itself, like I say, the show kicks off with a little video at the top, recapping things since Survivor Series 95, gives us a little Christmas In Your House logo. And we have, Vince and Jerry Lawler on comms today, because as we mentioned on Housekeeping, Jim Ross is on a very important assignment in the Hog Pen, which we'll obviously get to when we get to that match. Yeah, Lawler makes a couple of Christmas comments. Vince says something about Ted DiBiase being Scrooge McDuck. Don't really understand the reference there, but he is the first one through the curtain, as he is leading the charge for our opening match of. Again, got a bit of recap to do. Our heel now team of 1, 2, 3 Kid and Sid are in the Ted DiBiase stable and in the $1 Million Corporation. Up against, and again, very timely considering last month's Housekeeping, Marty Jannetty on the other end, on the other side of the aisle to 1, 2, 3 Kids with Razor Ramon. And plenty has happened, hasn't it, Michael, between Survivor Series 95 and In Your House 4?
It has indeed, and I was in love with this story at the time. So we recapped how after In Your House 4, or in the run-up to In Your House 4, Razor had beaten the Kid repeatedly. The same 1, 2, 3 that launched the Kid was now the thing that was ultimately destroying him because he could not get the win on Razor. He then tried in vain to be a referee and was rubbish at it and cost Razor a win over Dean Douglas. And ultimately what this took us to was a non-title match against Sid on the Raw just before the Survivor Series, where the Kid fast counts Razor and reveals that he has taken the $1 Million Man's dirty money. He is sick of being little brothered by Razor. This leads into the Survivor Series where DiBiase has paid off one of the heels in the opening match against Marty Jannetty's team to put the Kid on the team. I believe it was Jean-Pierre Lafitte in storyline, the pirate that took DiBiase's money, which was a nice write-off for Jean-Pierre Lafitte. So the Kid takes the spot and ends up being the sole survivor thanks to interference from Psycho Sid. There was a nice bit of Survivor Series lore because it came down to Jannetty and Kid. They were once on the same team a couple of years earlier. Now Kid is outgrowing all of his rivals and he's doing it with the help of his giant mate, Psycho Sid. This leads to a match on Raw where Sid decimates Marty Jannetty with power bombs, and they're kind of telling the story that the Kid is always on the run from Razor Ramon. In the meantime, on a Superstars, randomly, Marty Jannetty catches Razor Ramon backstage in a gorilla. Another one of these things where we get a rare look at the tiny gorilla position. And he catches up a Razor and he's like, look, I've got a problem with $1 Million Corporation. You've got a problem with the Kid. Why don't we pool our resources and we'll get them? And Razor's like, well, maybe. And then Jannetty says, I've got leather jackets. And Razor's like, I'm in, let's go. And all of a sudden... they've got leather jackets and they're going to work together to try and take out the corporation and the new evil 1, 2, 3 Kid.
Is Jean-Pierre Lafitte linked there as well with the leather jackets? I feel like he could be. I enjoy, by the way, that you mentioned there, that was as a write-off. Like, he basically got the same write-off as Del Boy and Only Fools and Horses. He won the millions and he's off. Works out well, done it. I'd forgotten that was the Jean-Pierre Lafitte law. But I'm with you in loving this whole story. And, like, obviously, with early days and kids still figuring out how to be a heel and how to work in this dynamic and be like you say, he's this runt heel, isn't he? That's just running away from Razor. And based on our previous reviews, we know Razor's loving that too, because instead of him having to bully like a Dean Douglas into taking all those shit, Kid's quite willingly, happily doing it. And it's actually part of the heat. It kind of logically makes sense. So everybody's winning. But I remember it being gigantically shocking at the time. I don't know what your overall thoughts are on heel 1, 2, 3 Kids. Is like a thing. It's not something you'd immediately go to, would you? Like I say, when we did 2 different Housekeeping episodes on babyface Kid matches, the Bret match and the tag with Jannetty is such a natural babyface. It's quite a bold move to do this story and have him in this role. Like, you would have believed, as we talked about in the last pay-per-view review, that it was maybe Razor that was going to turn, because he would maybe be the more, as he had been in the past in his career, the more natural heel of the two. But it's a fun spin on it, and it's something that genuinely shocked me as a kid when it happened. I was less... Even then, at that point, I was growing out of being, someone took the $1 Million Man's money. Like, we should be past that at this point. So we're about to hit the attitude there, lads. Come on. But like the actual heel turn and the execution of it was genuinely shocking. And I felt that Survivor Series 95 footage where Razor's overturning monitors and he just a pure sight of 1, 2, 3 Kid in the corporation being a heel. Like, it's just brilliant stuff, and it's visceral, and there's all the reasons to hate him for doing it.
Yeah, there's a lot of the stuff in this rivalry, and it's a shame for where we're going to get to in an In Your House's time, I guess, because it can't help be a bit cartoon era WWF by the end. However, if you think about the monitors being smashed and Razor chasing the Kid, literally chasing him through the building, those are visuals that were borrowed by CM Punk and MJF in 2022. Do you remember when MJF teams with FTR and they have that match at Christmas time where Punk teams with Darby and Sting, and Punk chases him through the perimeter of the building, and MJF just stay the heels are even in yellow to illustrate the point that they're the cowards. And then you've got this superhero babyface team of Sting, Darby, and Punk all in the paint together because Punk is that desperate to get his hands on MJF. So some of the stuff they was doing here were they realized that you could paint quite a striking image, and the Kid would there was this theme of him running in, doing something a right little dickhead to Razor and then bailing. And Razor was always playing catch up. And that was kind of like, that was the theme of all of their interactions when they weren't actually in matches together. And I just bought the kid as a rat straight away. I took it. They went from making him the underdog babyface to being like a little lad that needed slapping down for like sort of not for getting ideas above his station a little bit, you know?
Yeah. There's a lot of truth in that. And also the arc ends with Razor breaking kayfabe and run. Well, I guess he doesn't run down the company like MJF did, but there's kind of something, a bit of a similarity in there as well. But yo, I love the dynamic. I love it. I love any team where it's big man, little man. Like, I just think it's an underrepresented dynamic, especially as heels, where Kid can hide behind Sid. It's Shawn hiding behind Diesel as well. The visual of them two as a team is great too. Like, I'm really into it. And like you say, it's a shame it ends in comedy. It's a shame it doesn't go any more serious.
I get accused sometimes because I like the Fed of being too simple-minded in my tastes. And this is not going to do me any favors when I say this. It rhymes and it sounds nice.
Sid and the Kid.
Sid and the Kid. It's good.
It works. Marty and Razor, unfortunately, doesn't.
Marty Razor. So get rid of the 1, 2, 3. Sid. Fucking Sid and the Kid. The little shit. Sid and the Kid. Like, if you got rid of DiBiase, especially, and it wasn't softball season, and the Kid wasn't being courted by WCW, like, the world was against this team. But for one brief moment, it was magic.
$1 Million Kid was right there as well. If you were going to do the DiBiase thing, that'd be a great name, better than 1, 2, 3 Kid. But yeah, he'd have worse names coming in his career with the Kid. And unfortunately, before we get into the match, the opening of the match is kind of overshadowed by what is going to be Razor's next feud, as we do see Goldust in the crowd, sits with an usher by his side. I'm not sure who plays that character. Obviously later in the match he's got the gold envelope, hasn't he, for Razor. They spend a lot of the match, to be honest, focus on Goldust. There's a lot of camera on him. Like I say, cuts that entire promo there as well. But yeah, they make sure to tell you that is the real Goldust. It's not just somebody dressed up as him in cosplay in the front row, but foreboding for a story that would be told a bit later in the show. Don't know if you want to cover any of that now.
Well, it's what I was like quite struck by in this one. So yeah, as you say, Todd speaks to Goldust and they go picture in picture so that you can kind of concentrate on the match. And Goldust is watching it with you, and he's infatuated with Razor Ramon. And I thought in my head, because of how the match plays out with the Royal Rumble a month later, I thought they were quite cute, I guess, with the references, and that it was going to be like innuendo laden because it was all Goldust talking in riddles and talking in films. Watch this back. He just wants to fuck him. Like, they do away with the innuendo pretty quickly. They are leaning in pretty hard on Goldust is just sexually attracted to Razor Ramon. And I don't know if this is going to like be a theme of this early Goldust stuff, but I think it's really interesting to analyze. I can never decide with Goldust if I admire the boldness of going with it or resent the fact that they knew it was going to get homophobic heat, because they do steer into it. They are telling you, no matter what you think about Goldust, the character, they are telling you this man fancies this other man, deal with it, cope with it. And if you can't cope with it, that's on you. And I think for 1995 and wrestling, that's pretty progressive. But in the exact same lane, they know what chants are going to be directed at Goldust. They know that it's going to make him a heel, and that's a problem. And Razor Ramon not wanting to work with him almost feels like it means that they're positioning someone who is gay as a sexual deviant, and there's no attempt to they're not even trying to blur those lines. They're pretty much outright saying, if you are gay, you're a sexual deviant. And it's wrestling that is nowhere near the place to cope with this kind of subject matter. Giving it a bash. I'm all over the shop with it.
That's the thing. Wrestling, unfortunately, it's never been able. It's like, the simplistic arguments of like, well, if 24 does a terrorist storyline, why can't the WWE have Muhammad Hassan? And it's like, because the WWE can't be trusted with it. That's the problem, because they can't tell the story in a grown-up way, and that's kind of true here. There could be layers to it, but there's no layers to Razor's portrayal of it. He's just outright disgusted and wants to beat allegedly gay man up because he's gay and he fancies him. Like that is the heat. That's what they're leaning in for the cheers. And I think, yeah, there's definitely things to admire about like Dustin's performance as Goldust. Like there's a bravery in what he's doing and how he's portraying it. And I have seen it, not spun, but I can't really think of another word, in a positive light because of that. Because it being early-ish representation, at least as far as the 90s go. But I think you only have to really point, don't you, to what comes later when, you know, Goldust outright turns babyface because he tells Jerry Lawler he's not gay. Like that's a moment that gets a pop in the ring. Like that tells you exactly what they're doing here. But I know why you're saying you're all over the place, because there are elements of it, and there are elements of Dustin's portrayal that do have that little bit of depth. It's just the overall wrestling ecosystem, and arguably the ego of the real life man, Scott Hall, can't get out the way. And yeah, the story goes the way it goes. But yeah, it's the hardest they've obviously leaned into this element of the Goldust character, especially compared to how we saw him debut on the Last Day in Your House.
It's sort of the opposite, isn't it, of most wrestling stories, where when wrestling has tried to actually get its finger on the pulse culturally, it tends to age horribly because it, as you say, it just gets it wrong. And of course, there are massive, crucial elements that it gets wrong here because Scott Hall's the babyface. But I do think the element of Goldust, early Goldust, that ages very well, is that character asks the viewer to figure out their own prejudices. If you, the viewer, hate Goldust, why do you hate Goldust? What are you threatened by about Goldust? And I think that's something then that is quite interesting. Now it's one of the rare cases where you can look back and say, wow, they were actually challenging the audience in a way that wrestling almost never does. Yeah,
and to the point as well, like he is, it kind of fits the character in that like his performance is almost Oscar-worthy. He is like a character from a really nuanced good film plopped into a shit action film, which is we love it, is what wrestling is. And the shit action film can't deal with the nuances of what that better layered Oscar-worthy story could do. But yeah, in isolation, he's still great. And, you know, there's definitely, you know, positive to say about like his performance in the role. And again, the gigantic departure from what we knew him as in this period as Dustin Rhodes as well. But we'll get some more on that. That obviously kind of takes over the match in the early going and later on as well, as we've mentioned. But as a match, it's an interesting one. Like it got a 1.25 from the Observer, and I saw that before I watched the match and was a bit shocked by that. Maybe it's the finish, I don't know, but like as a worked match, I quite enjoyed it. I thought Marty's was on form. Him and Kids being on opposite ends and the early going of that, them kind of going back and forth, was quite high level, you know, stuff. Marty looked like he had his head screwed on this particular month at the very least. Obviously, as you mentioned there, in the early going, there's a lot of Kids running away from Razor, which is the heat in this story, and it works as a means to set up a Sid clothesline, which allows the heels to get a little bit of heat on Razor. Bit of a false tag, a hot tag to Jannetty, who you just know Jannetty's not getting the real hot tag here. He's still Marty Jannetty, even when he's not in there with Shawn Michaels. He eventually ends up taking the heat as well, which is the lead up to like a big Razor comeback. But I actually think structurally it's an interesting match because they do the double heat, they do the double comeback, and I think like the interactions between the four wrestlers, I was really into. Well, three of the wrestlers and Sid, I was really into. I thought there was good stuff in this.
Yeah, me too. Marty's hot tag is outstanding, and it's better than Razor's because Razor's hot tag is over before you know it because he gets the win straight away. Like the fact that when Razor tags in and then not really, it's a bulldog off the top on Sid for the win. As you say, the finish kind of comes out of nowhere, and then because there's a bit of post-match afters with the wrestlers, there's almost a sense that watching through like smart mark eyes, I guess, you think, was that definitely supposed to be the pin? I did rewind this and watch it back just to try and spot if there was a rolled shoulder that got missed, but it doesn't look like it. It's just the way it's performed. Feels like unfinished almost and a bit unvarnished. But I like the match. There was a spot because the Kid and Sid obviously do cut the ring in half, but it's very much with this idea that Sid's the one that can make a difference. So whenever Kid's on offense, what I think is, and it's very click managed, Kid tries to insert his offense to make it look like Sid's. And the best example I could come up with to illustrate that was how Sid whips the Kid at Jannetty, and the Kid hits Jannetty with a flying drop kick, and it makes it look like Sid's the one that's powered the drop kick because he's whipped him so hard. And I thought that's so smart to be like, right, the kid would do a flying drop kick to the corner as a babyface and it would look awesome. How do we make this a heel spot, and how do we give the heat to Sid when all Sid's got is Sid moves? And there was a few of them like that, which I thought were dead impressive. But I've got to bring up, Benno, this is going to be the first case of the night, and I'm going to come back to this a lot. The front row that revealed a lot of ECW shirts and a lot of ECW-centric signs that we got from this sort of front 5 rows of this crowd in Hershey, Pennsylvania. So. The first big one that appears when Marty Jannetty gets the hot tag and the sign unfurls to read "Marty must die" in thick capital letters. Felt a bit harsh. There's a one that says, "Hello ECW fans," and then there's a couple that are blurred by the Netflix version of this day that I have to think have got some of the very worst words in from the time, perhaps. But there's more of these to come as we go on. It did feel like a running theme because a Sid chant breaks out as well. And we know that years later, the ECW faithful would be big fans of Sid. He's an ECW guy at his core, weirdly.
Despite everything they ever said, Sid always liked him. Yeah.
I love us. They would do this a lot. I love Sid pulling the lifeless kid, like, and being able to carry him over his shoulder, like, to help him escape Razor Ramon. It's a good look. It's
just weird that that's the heat, because, like you say, like, I like the structure of the match, but as you've nailed down there, Razor gets the hot tag. Sid misses a leg drop, doesn't he? And he comes back, and it's a bulldog. And it's like, I guess, he's not getting Sid up for the Razor's Edge, is he? But it's such a B move that it's like, I did the same thing as you, rewinded to check it was the pin. And then on top of that, Sid's up a few seconds later, and like you say, he's the one saving Kid and dragging him out and taking him off. So it's like, if you were going to do that, like, I guess it's interesting that, like, you would think with Vince head on and WWF head on, Sid would be the one to be trying to protect. You know, In Your House 1 was, only a few shows ago, and In Your House 2 when Sid was the top guy there. So interesting that they're protecting Kid in the finish here, and it is just clean as a whistle. Sid just jobbing to raise it, I guess. They say softball season and all of the other issues that they come up with Sid, why they're so hot and cold on him during this period. But it is alarming considering where we were only 3 On Your Houses ago.
It's kind of amazing that, by the end of January, he's gone once again. And even when he's doing the JOB here, he does it in such a way that you've completely forgotten by the end, because he always knows there's a comeback to think about. Like, there's always the next run to consider. Smart operator was Sid.
That's why we love him. Does get underrated for that. He's got the brain. But we go from there, and that's our opener match, which again enjoyed much more than Meltzer would have said, or the cage match rating would have said. So the ring announcer in the ring trying to introduce Nature Boy Bloody Landell. Just the weirdest thing, isn't it? Like, he announces from Nashville, Tennessee, where he's from. He announces him from there. It's like, that's weird. And then Lawler has to, like, it's almost like Vince is elbowing him. Fuck Jerry, angle Jerry. And Jerry gets up and jumps on the mic and goes, I don't know what he's on about. Get out the ring. It's like, you just give away the entire next segment. Something got miscommunicated there very clearly.
Amazing stuff, and I'm so glad it survives the network edit and now the Netflix version as well. Yeah, the poor ring announcer has obviously been given the wrong information, because, as you point out, the very mention of Buddy Landell is to give away. It's to give away what's about to come for the next match.
Yeah,
and it isn't even the next match. There's a segment to get to before we get to the match, and further to that, he calls him Buddy Rydell. So he's even got his name wrong. And so the announcer just says, and here he comes from, I think it was Memphis, maybe, from Memphis, Tennessee. The Nature Boy, Buddy Rydell. And then nothing happens, obviously. And Vince, on air, just goes, what in the world is going on here? I don't think he has any idea what he's doing out there. And I'd need to double check, but I don't think we see this poor ring announcer again. It's not Chimmel, it's not Fink, and I don't think he's long for this world.
It's a hard job, mate. I ring announced 2 different shows. First one, I couldn't get my words out. I was just terrifying being in the middle of the ring in my best as the George shirt and tie and trying to get names right. And then the second one, nobody clued me in that the world title was changing at that GPW show. And even when the pin had happened, I was so scared of putting a foot wrong and announcing someone as the new world champion I was like, it must have been non-title then. Like, they would have surely told me if there was a world title change happening. I just named, it was Dirk Feelgood, good friend of the show and friend of mine. She said, the winner of the match, Dirk Feelgood, and then he lifted the belt up and I was like, and also the new GPW World Heavyweight Champion. I never ring announced again. That was it. 2 and done. It's a hard job. It's not as easy as it looks on TV. So every sympathy to this poor fella. But the shovel him out. Lawler has his big surprise, which obviously he's been boosting up on the pre-show, and his big surprise, which is a Christmas present to you and I. It's JEFFJARRETT. It's Jeffrey Jarrett, mate, on his big return. Again, another great tie into our housekeeping review of Jeff and Diesel.
I love him so much, Benno, man. Like, he is basically, in the summer, just told Vince to fuck off, right? And then by Christmas, he's already back. We've already seen in the opener how the ECW faithful are not going to give WWE an easy night. You know, you remember King of the Ring, Mabel's getting the ECW chance. Even they're a bit buzzed because they just wouldn't have expected. They'd have been reading the Observer, they'd have been reading the Torch, and they'd have read that Jeff and Roddy walked out in July, and they're probably thinking, well, that's it. He's never getting another go around with Vince. And it's Christmas and he's already back. I mean, as we'll get to, it's only going to be for a good time rather than a long one, but it's just funny. Like, everything that got dropped in July, because the Road Dogg hasn't come back with him, they can't do the fake singing thing. So it's just like, yeah, it was just a massive success. In Your House too was class, and now I'm back. I've done another album.
Of course he was in the studio. Of course he was on tour. It's the perfect kayfabe explanation as to where he's been this entire time. He's been around the world making new albums, making new songs, and touring his great hits. Like, makes kayfabe sense, doesn't it?
It's brilliant, man. Did you catch as well? Lawler's done the big build-up return, and he's stepped on Jeff's dick a little bit, and Jeff picks him up on it because Jerry goes, "We loved Ain't I Great, and now you've sold 500,000 copies of that. Here's your new one, greater than great." And then Jarrett's like, "I was going to do that, mate, you prick." As I've said, it's greater than great. And he's like, "You've took my big punchline there, Jerry." He's class, man, and he's so good. And he announces that he's going to be in the Rumble, and he never even makes it. So.
I forgot he doesn't hit it at all. Yeah, of course. I can't wait to get to those that housekeeping. But yeah, it's confusing a bit about, because it's like, it's clear whether the gold record is for With My Baby Tonight or whether it's for Greater Than Great, the new album, because they are both like kind of stepping each over there. But I love the fact that he's been in the studio this whole time. I love the fact that even like the gold record that Lawler's trying to pull out has got like the cheapest bit of paper wrapped around it, and Lawler's struggling to get it off and pull it off the back. It's like stuck to the side of it. Doesn't even happen with the shittest Christmas present racking. It's a rough job if they're trying to sell us this as a real gold record. But yeah, of course, he does declare for the Rumble, and Lawler invites him to sit on commentary as well. It's just fun seeing them go back and forth, isn't it? It's a good little segment.
I love it, man. We talk about alternative timelines all the time on this podcast, and there's two for me here. There's one where he sits down at the desk and he's in, for those that haven't seen this show, go back and take a look, but it's Jeff Jarrett in 1995, so you can imagine the refinery, but he's not in wrestling gear, so he's got a special shiny new jacket and hat to wear. And he sits down right in front of a row full of fans in ECW shirts. So for a second, I imagine Jeff Jarrett in peak era ECW in the ECW arena in 95. And then I also thought about when he says, "I want to win the Royal Rumble and I want to main event WrestleMania 12. And I'm thinking, well, I know for a fact you'd have had a better match with Bret or Shawn because we've reviewed them both on this podcast. And I'd have rather had that at WrestleMania 12 than what we ended up getting. So if only it had been, Jeff, eh?
That'd be the real Iron Man, wouldn't it? Imagine those sliding doors. And that could be a completely different world.
He'd have actually taken a couple of falls if he was in that one.
Imagine that creative idea. Could have worked. But yeah, we're seed planting for a few things. Obviously, some things that aren't to come, but we're mainly seed planting for this next match / segment. As no, it's not Buddy Landell coming out, at least at first. It's Dean Douglas. I love the fact that Jeff doesn't appear to know who Dean Douglas is, and also doesn't appear to know who Ahmed Johnson is when he comes out later. Good kayfabe. He's been in the studio. He's been busy. He doesn't know who these new guys are. But Dean's back is I think he says it's 55%. Therefore, he brings out his protege, which is actually, as announced by the ring announcer a little while ago, and on the back of the VHS, kayfabe is dead. Nature Boy Buddy Landell comes out to the. I'd say knock off Ric Flair theme, but it's the actual Ric Flair theme that they used in the WWF. Was this the first time you found out Buddy Landell even existed? I remember this is a show that I'm not 100% outside of the main event. I actually saw, even in the years since, but I always remember getting the WWF magazine when it had the pictures in it and going, why is he dressed exactly like Ric Flair? And he's also called Nature Boy, and he's also got the same hair, and he's got the same robe, and he has the same music, apparently. Like, what is this? I was so confused by who this bloke was.
It's this stuff that makes you realise how much stuff Flair borrowed when he became the Nature Boy, isn't it? Because all the Nature Boys wear the robes, all the Nature Boys do that thing where they hold their arms up a certain way. And like the picture in the magazine was of Buddy Landell holding his arms up like Flair would in the robe. And I love, Shane's 3/4 of the way out the door and he's still getting ribbed. Like, of all the people that have got to put over a Nature Boy and have got to put over somebody doing a Ric Flair bit, it's Shane Douglas. It's like this one last kick in the bollocks on his way out the company. It's like, you know what you're going to do now? You're going to put over Ric Flair. You love him, don't you? You love Ric Flair.
Your favourite.
Go and be the representative of a Ric Flair guy. As well, he turns to the camera, and I would give anything for the shot to linger a little bit longer, but he turns to the audience, I should say, and the camera cuts away as you see Dean Douglas's face looking at a sign that says "Welcome Home, Shane." And I would have, from one of those Easter, and I would have given anything to see his reaction to it, because when he's on the floor for obviously playing manager to Buddy Landell, they're all chanting Shane, 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 and you can't quite make out his reaction as he's in all of his Dean Douglas gear. But he must have been thinking, "I'm nearly out. I'll be back soon." Thank God they remember me, and thank God they're going to be nice because I can't wait to get home.
I will say, in fairness to him, I think the favour they do to him, and I wonder why Buddy Landell gets this job. Probably nobody else wanted to take the bumps that were about to come in this one, as coming through the entrance like a force of nature and making his debut on an In Your House proper pay-per-view review. It is the one, the only, clad in all red knee pads, elbow pads, and every other accessory you can get his hands on, Ahmed Johnson. Fucking the music, just him, his aura, his mean mugging face that there gets pointed out. Like Vince kind of has to say, oh, he's just born that way. He can't help it. He's actually a nice guy. It's just like, fuck, he's such a brick shit house, and you know he's coming out there to kill. And oh my God, I literally just had them written on my notes. Ahmed Johnson's here. Ahmed Johnson's here. Give him all the fucking belts. Just give him all the belts. Honestly, if I was booking in 1985, mate, it'd be a very different company.
He does, man. He makes you just want to scream. I think this is one of those In Your Houses where it's just a printout rather than an actual, a Titantron on the house set itself. But if he could have had a video at the time, it would have just said fuck off, it's Ahmed Johnson. Get the fuck out of the way. He's such a beast. It's such a sort of, it's like that kind of just that will to scream and will a guy into existence. It makes me think now how lucky kids are to get their first run at a Bron Breaker, because they're not going to screw Bron Breaker up the way that ultimately WWE and Ahmed Johnson kind of the whole thing fell apart. It's not going to fall apart for Bron Breaker, and young fans of him are getting their first taste of what it was like for us to have just this complete agent of chaos.
I remember that feeling of that's a thing. We're just too. It's not going to happen, is it? That we're going to watch in WWE and someone's going to come out and we're going to go, who's that? Or someone's going to come out in WCW or AW, sorry, and we're going to go, who's that? In these Ahmed Johnson, just a complete man who's come off the street who you've never heard of before, as far as you know, has never wrestled before, or you've seen as a little photo print in WWF magazine. And then he comes out and he's this fucking awesome. Again, not knowing the things you know now, that he gets in there and Flow Buddy Landell, who he no-sells, puts on the top rope, and then Buddy tries to go for a crossbody, doesn't he? He gets caught. Yeah. Really sloppy spine buster, really sloppy river punch. And then he beats him. It's class, isn't it? It's brilliant as a kid. It's that looks like it really hurt, because it did. He's fucking brilliant. Then he paddles Dean, which feels like a shoot on the outside with the paddling. He's going after him. You can just see it on everyone's eyes. And in the post-match, which we're going to get to, it deserves its own segment. everyone out there, as much as we're kids, I'm loving it. Every wrestler working with them is hating every second of it because they know they're just a second away from like a black eye or a broken limb. But it's fucking brilliant to watch.
Oh, it's amazing, man. Yeah, I should have mentioned this. Yeah, so obviously it was going to be Dean Douglas versus Ahmed Johnson. The match doesn't happen because Dean's injured, and this is it. This is it for poor old Dean. And the paddle that he's got, I don't know if you caught what it was called. It was called the Board of Education, which is quite a nice play on words.
Quite good.
And the last thing that Dean Douglas does on a WWF pay-per-view stage is getting his arse smashed to bits by Ahmed Johnson with his own Board of Education, and then him and Buddy just like hobble off together in fear and pain because Ahmed's fucking battered them, and that's it. Like back to the ECW arena he goes, never to be seen again. But I mean, to be fair, Ahmed was getting his shots in because he might be about to take a few of his own.
In front of a Pennsylvania crowd as well. Poor Shane. But yeah, he goes on to better things, I think we can all say, than this guy. It gives him material for promos for years as well, so that at least there's that as well. But you mentioned the post-match. So yeah, we have Ahmed paddling Dean, the heels pal there. Lawler decides he's going to interview Ahmed Johnson post-match, which is lucky because Ahmed's just standing around in the ring like he doesn't know what to do next. Like it's like I think it's because he's waiting for the next segment to happen. Lawler does ask Jeff to come with him, who's been on commentary through the match, like I say, not knowing who Ahmed was, not knowing who Dean was, and just kind of getting a chuckle out of all of this and not really being a fan of this new star, Ahmed Johnson. I can't even do it justice, that the mic work on the outside. I feel like Lawler and Jeff are trying to do a bit of a back and forth. And I think, what doesn't Lawler say something like, oh, there's only... Jeff, tell him what he can do about it. And Jeff has got this line he desperately wants to say. There's two things you can do. He even holds up the two. And Ahmed just cuts him off, grabs the mic, and just starts talking. Because he's Ahmed Johnson. Calls Jeff a fake punk, a fake cowboy. Yeah. It's fucking just like... It's a stream of consciousness, Ahmed Johnson, while the two pros around them are trying to shepherd them into the next bit of the angle. Glorious stuff.
And presumably, because Ahmed has maybe over this interview gone into business for himself, was it that point that Jeff Jarrett thought, oh, well, I guess I can as well? Because fucking hell.
Mate, I don't cringe off
the weapon shots here.
I don't cringe off them, but it reminded me of obviously the Rumble this year with I Show Speed and Bron Breakker, in that Bron Breakker didn't really take very good care of I Show Speed, if we're all honest with ourselves. That's also why it was awesome. But also I think it was because I Show Speed didn't turn around quick enough and Bron had to hit the ropes twice before he could hit the move, and even then he almost speared him to the back. Luckily he turned around at all. I think this is the 1995 equivalent of that. I think Ahmed is supposed to turn round and take the shot from Jeff on the front of the head. Instead, as you've alluded to there, he literally takes the gold record thing and just hits him on the back of the head. It's horrible. It's horrible. It's worse than anything else you'll see on the show. It's unbelievable.
Oh, God. Yeah, he hits him the back of his head, unprotected, with the disc. Then Jerry Lawler holds up a chair. And he goes head first into that chair, right?
Oh, my God.
And people need to see this. This is not just us, a couple of Ahmed Johnson marks.
No.
If you don't think Ahmed is concussed after that, you will do in the chase scene, because Ahmed seems to forget that he's supposed to slow down. And when Jeff runs off, Ahmed catches him. They just brawl on the floor because Jeff's probably going, get off me, you're not supposed to actually catch me. But Ahmed's just grappled him to the ground in the middle of the aisle. They've not even got a spotlight on it. It's just a bar fight happening in the aisle next to a fucking hog pen. Ahmed is caught a Jarrett.
He just doesn't know what to do next.
Get off me.
It's literally that, isn't it? It's he's treated it like a shoot race and he's caught him because he's faster. And he literally double hook, fish hooks him, he double Perry Satins it. He proper grabs him and Jeff can't get out. Jeff is struggling legitimately to get out of this man's bear hug. Jeff starts trying to hit him with the chair again, doesn't he? Over the back of his head. Eventually kind of gets a shot off and then they stumble through the curtain and I almost feel like you see Ahmed get through the curtain and look at Gorilla I'm in trouble, aren't I? He knows he's done that. Because all he needs to do was a Razor 1, 2, 3 kid and run off. But Ahmed just had to catch him, didn't he? I'm not sure if that's concussions. I think that's just Ahmed Johnson. But like, if I didn't think he was a beast already, though, I would get hit in the back with the gold record. Like you say, the chair shots were just as bad as well. To no sell that and then just still be the non-stop baby face. Like, oh, money lit my eyes up. Brilliant stuff.
It makes you realize that like any kind of real fighting, even a little chase, doesn't look like wrestling, doesn't it? Because when they're grappling on the floor, it doesn't look like your brain is conditioned to. It looks like two people that cannot get out of each other's grasp or out of each other's way.
Stuck. And you can tell Ahmed's waiting for someone to tell him what to do next, and he probably can't hear Jeff. And it's just, it's brilliant stuff. And he definitely I bet he got a bollock him backstage. I bet Jeff wasn't happy with him, and maybe that's part of the reason why Jeff's not long for this world come up as well. But again, start making stuff for me, mate. And I think nothing can possibly go wrong going forward with our Ahmed. But yeah, we go from there. Wonderful segment. One of the highlights of the show. Loved it from start to finish. Fantastic stuff. Tailor made for me and you, mate. Bit of Ahmed, bit of Jeff. I think so, yeah. Bit of everything we want. We go backstage to repeat, as we said earlier, the Razor and Goldust stuff is going on. Razor's at the AOL station, I think it is. We ever on AOL Instant Messenger, mate? IWF New Jack was my name. I was in an e-fed called the IWF, and I was New Jack, and that's all the questions I'm willing to answer about that. But got some good promos. Me and Triple H had a good feud. It was good stuff.
I was in an e-fed called Hardcore Championship Wrestling, and I dare say it was quite similar in tone to IWF as well, with the stuff that you could get away with for your promos because it was nearer the knuckle. I briefly remember I cannot remember what my username was, but AIM was one of those things that was one of them mind-blowing early internet things. But I think I had a more localized UK. There was a free serve wrestle chat group, and it was UK based. And I was more into the free serve group because it was people from the UK talking. So it was all about Raw on Friday, and then as soon as you would speak to an American online, you could tell it was different because they were plugged in properly, and you were more sort of amongst your sort of the UK conversations.
One of my mates actually, and I'm not taking the blame for this. In the IWF, we had a Steve Carino who left the EFED. And he had Steve Carino on his AOL Instant Messenger contacts lists. And he actually messaged Steve and said, "Do you want to join our EFED, mate?" And he went, "No." I'm surprised. I thought he'd have the spare time in about 2002, whenever this was, but apparently he didn't, unfortunately. But
there is somebody who will remain nameless because it's his story, but somebody in the WhatCulture parish EFEDed with a young EFEDer who went by the name John Gargano, and and I think I'm 99% certain he's 99% certain it is the man himself.
That's brilliant. See, we're all connected. We're all the same people. We've just grown old together, and we change usernames and stuff. But we're all still there. So that's it. That one big community. But yeah, unfortunately, I didn't have a Razor and One on my AOL contact list. That again, I was always an AOL Instant Messenger guy, even over MSN. It was where the Americans were, Michael. They were up at 5 in the morning. And my mates on MSN had gone to bed by 11. So that's another story of how I ended up the way I am. But yeah, he's in the Razor's in the. I love the cool purple Razor tee with the logo on the chest bit. You can wear that now. That is a Today t-shirt, isn't it? And you'd look cool as fuck, as Razor did.
Gerald Briscoe found about 10 of them in his shed, didn't he, on Twitter?
Oh, yeah, he's been posting them, hasn't he?
Yeah, he found a pile of them. It's a shame he hasn't actually washed them because I'd buy one, but they look all got car oil and mud on all the stuff.
Yeah, they all look a bit dusty, but I don't know. Make it nice, clean. They could work out well, but yeah, Razor's looking cool. Less cool as his reaction to receiving the gold, basically Oscar envelope that Todd Pettengill had received earlier in the night. He just passes it on. He's like, "Oh, by the way, here's this," and then he runs away, and then Razor loses his shit and. Yeah, it is the story of start of a story that doesn't get up so much with Razor. From there, we go into our next match, which is one I've definitely been dreading since we started this In Your House project, which is the Arkansas, to give its full name, Hog Pen match, as we have special referee Hillbilly Jim out there for Hunter Hearst Helmsley versus Henry O'Goblin. Obviously, this would turn into a more long-term gig, wouldn't it, for Hillbilly Jim? He goes from the ref here to being the manager of Henry O'Goblin to being the manager of the Goblins as brothers. And yeah, we very much get, like you said on the pre-show, we get the hard sell from JR about the Hog Pen being at ringside. Triple H, or Hunter Hearst Helmsley at the time, gives it the hard sell because it smells apparently, pig shit. Who knew? On his way out. And yeah, we have a babyface still. Henry O'Goblin out here. an infamous match, mate, and I'm just glad to say that, you know, it's unbelievable that the Triple H here is already getting punished for the curtain call that hasn't happened yet, which is, again, part of wrestling law, which is not true.
Yeah.
This match takes place before the curtain call, folks. We are living proof. It is. It wasn't part of any kind of punishment. It's just the match they gave a young Hunter Hearst Helmsley to carry out there with Henry O'Goblin.
Yeah, it was very prescient that they knew he was going to do that to get this in early, wasn't it? And yeah, how it's always featured in the video packages of him swimming in the mud after the fact. For those that missed our last review, obviously this was Henry Godwinn was babyface by the virtue of the fact that he was now slopping heels pretty much. He'd rejected Ted DiBiase's dirty money. He liked dirty stuff, but he liked pig shit rather than cash. So he'd gone babyface, and obviously Hunter Hearst Helmsley is a snob, doesn't want to be around mud, and there's vignettes where he goes to pig farms and he tries to learn the way of a pig farm so he can win this hog pen match. So there's law. The two things that struck me in this one, much like when he worked the gimmick battle royal, Hillbilly Jim's got a better body than 95% of the entire roster. Like that man, well built from day one. And I don't know why this came to me when I watched this, because I've seen the hog pen match before, and as you point out, it's so embedded in a big lie of Triple H's history and legacy and stuff like that. Is the hog pen like work pig shit or shoot pig shit? Because wouldn't the building and the seats around the hog pen stink of pig shit all night if there was a shoot hog pen? Do you think they had like working mud? And the pigs were real. They weren't up to much, but on the pre-show they were running around Jim Ross. And if you remember, there's that story of one of Owen Hart's ribs. Low key, I don't think the Owen Hart stories sound funny, but you're not allowed to poke that sacred cow. But one of Owen Hart's ribs was that he let the pigs into Vince's office. Yeah. And there's a picture in the WWF magazine of Vince opening the door. Oh, yeah, all the pigs are in his office. Yeah. So the pigs were shoot pigs, even though they don't move for most of this hog pen match. They just look asleep. But do you think it was actual shit? Because wouldn't that just stunk?
They probably couldn't have afforded the fake stuff, could they? And even if it was fake, the pigs are going to ruin it immediately, aren't they? Because what do pigs do? They shit. That's probably legit. You'd be fuming, wouldn't you, if you got one of those seats? Got 4 tickets for it in your house, you know, in Hershey. Can't wait to get there, and you get to your seat, and it's literally adjacent to just some pigs probably shagging and shitting and stuff in the air, and JR's in his suit trying to wade through it all. It's like, what have I came to? Why am I here? 100%.
Imagine meeting somebody like that, just, you were there for Bret and Bulldog? Yeah. What do you remember about it? Well, it stunk of pig spunk. But, otherwise a good night, I suppose.
And I went home with shit on me. Because even when, in this match, Hunter's bumping in the aisle, and he's got brown shit on him already because it's fucking everywhere, because it's all over everybody. Because I think it is legitimately sheet mud in there. But I will say, I think they do a good job with the match. I think I was dreading this. I assumed this was bad, just on face value that it was bad. I actually think this is an all right, because it doesn't start great. You know, the early spots around, like you say, Henry Gordon's going to slop the heels and all of that stuff, because of course you've got to build it around the heat powder and over that. But I feel like when it breaks down to the brawl and they get closer to the pen, it's good stuff. Trips pulls out a fucking Cactus Jack elbow off the side of the pen, which is like, whoa, seeing him do that, that's fucking awesome. Like, Henry you forget Canterbury's actually not that bad as a wrestler. It's more the gimmick, isn't it? That's the problem. But he's willing to take bumps. He tries to do a slop drop on the apron on the concrete. Triple H doesn't bump, but he fucking bumps, and he takes the full concrete on his back for it. Hunter takes a big bump into the gate of the hog pen kind of later in that match as well. They get to a slop drop, don't they? Where they do in fact hit one. It's on the very paper thin WWF mats. I think the physicality of the match, despite the ridiculousness of the stipulation and the finish, which we'll get to, I actually think the construction of it and the way they do it was almost like, this is ridiculous. We're above this. But you know what? We're just going to make it good somehow. And I might be completely on a hand to nothing. Maybe you don't agree. But I honestly thought this was a good little match that they worked hard in and kind of sacrificed for to make into something more than what it is.
No, I totally agree. It put me in mind another Philadelphia reference. But in 2002, when Paul Heyman was booking SmackDown, And he loved getting his SmackDown 6 matches on TV. And Brock obviously was getting pushed. So those were his big things. Get Brock over and push my favorite 6 wrestlers. But then it's like, right, in the meantime, Dawn Marie's going to shag Al Wilson to death, because that's the stuff that Vince is going to love. So if I can just distract him with an old man and Dawn Marie, I can do my good wrestling. I can do that. And that was like kind of Paul Heyman's masterstroke in 2002. This match feels like they do the Vince stuff for him, and then they do the work for themselves. The opening part, it's got like Henry Godwin's got 2 slot buckets for this one because it's his match. And he goes to slop Triple H on the floor, and he misses, and it goes all over the timekeeper, and it goes all over the front row. Again, you've gone to WWE and you've got front row for in your house, you've ended up getting slop on you. I don't know. That could go. Maybe it's working slop, and it's not anything that's disgusting, but it looks gross anyway. And then the wrestlers are tripping up on the slop. It's wet slop. So Henry Godwin gets it in his hand and puts it in Triple H's mouth. And it looks like Triple H has got moldy salad all over his face, and it looks gross. But Vince McMahon likes that grossed out comedy. Yeah. So it's like they've done that for him. And then, as you say, they go out and they do all this stuff by the pen. Super hard hitting. And it's super hard hitting for real, because Triple H gashes his back, gets all that mud and pig shit in it, and he gets an infection after the fact, doesn't he? You see Henry Godwin, because he loses, obviously, the match, but he gets his revenge and he does the press slam on Triple H. And as he goes to pick him up, you see it's like the Bob Holly, Rob Van Dam cut, isn't it? You see the blood coming out of Triple H's cut, and it's only red for a second because then his whole back's brown. And it's like mud and pig shit has just gone in that cut. That's taking one for the team.
Yeah. He should have thought of this when he did the curtain call. That's all I'm going to say. Last time I say that. But he makes something out of it, though. You mentioned the finish there. I was shocked. I'd just forgotten that Triple H actually wins. That's a forgotten footnote in history, because he gets and he should, because he's clearly, whatever you think of him now or then, he's on the up, and he's someone you could probably do a little bit more with than the fucking hog farmer. He back body drops, doesn't he, Henry Godwin into it, and he gets the win. So I'd forgotten about that. But obviously, the payoff to this is it's probably fine for Henry Godwin. That's as far as they've told us in storyline, that's his everyday life, isn't it? Rolling around in pig shit, so he's fine with it. It's him grabbing Triple H and pulling him over, isn't it? And obviously doing the big gorilla press, which is a great bump, to be fair. Triple H takes it face first, which is the perfect way to dunk a heel in the big shit if you're going to do that. And even the post-match, he proper, he hams it up, doesn't he? Hunter, he's trying to fight, because he's blind now from the pig shit. He's trying to fight an invisible man. The comedy spot, he's slipping on it. He's doing his own bumps on it. He's rolling around and making it all worse. He's doing that purely for your entertainment. He's doing that purely to get over a really shit bit. If we're honest, he's doing that to get over with Vince, isn't he? Because he's probably assuming Vince on the inside is, and actually on the outside on commentary, is laughing his head off with this. He gets it over. It's this heel getting his comeuppance. It's a shame it's for the babyface Henry O. Godwin and like I say, Hillbilly Jim, who try and do it a bit of a jig on the outside as a result, which Henry just looks uncomfortable doing. But Triple H's performance, if I was watching it with an adult eye at this point, I might have gone, you know what, there might be something there with him. There might be, Michael? There might be a couple of good runs in a stable. There might be a good single year in the year 2000, and then that might do. That's probably what I would have thought at that point.
Just see him off in the mid 2000s when he's outlived his usefulness, that sort of thing. Yeah, that kind of run. You're right. He's working to impress here as much as anything else, and he understands. He's got a keen eye for knowing who and how to impress the right people. Someone presumably like a Pat Patterson is going to be impressed with being able to follow instructions and a match that's laid out as well as this. So he's going to speak highly of Triple H to Vince. Shawn Michaels and the rest of the clique are going to speak highly of Triple H to Vince, because they're going to say, look at what the guy will do for you. It's not just us gobbling up the top of the card. He'll do that for you in the lower card. Push him in 1996. And then Vince himself is going to be going through his list, and they're going to be like, oh, what about Hunter Helmsley? And Vince's little insane Rolodex is not going to think about the work rate match he had on Superstars against a Bob Holly, and it's not going to remember the cactus elbow, but he's going to remember the pig shit bump, and he's going to be like, oh, yeah, he took one for the team there. Triple H is a smart operator, isn't he? Maybe the smartest ever, and he's doing it even in a Hog Pen match.
There you go. And it's funny because, when we set this project out, I knew there'd be shite. And it's not all great, as last month's In Your House review kind of tells you. This is something I thought guaranteed we'd spend this show burying, and we both liked it. That's a shock. Maybe there's something in that Paul Levesque, maybe. We'll see. But yeah, entertaining stuff, despite the shite around it. But yeah, we go from there. Like I say, the team of the Godwins is soon to come as well. So we got that to look forward to, unfortunately, on the babyface side. But yeah, we go to a Royal Rumble advert with I think it's Lord Alfred Hayes, isn't it, on the call, doing the voiceover to it. Rare one to hear in 1995. This is actually where I got the. It wasn't New Balance, it was Nike. I got the Nike advert from Netflix for some nice new trainees as well. It was just really weird because it was like I'm going from Alfred Hayes and I'm expecting, like you say, to go back to Doc Hendrick. All of a sudden, like the year 2025 is hitting me in the face. It's uncomfortable.
There was a little note that I took from this, because it's your standard kind of cartoonish advert with the kid and some posh people and that. But then it cuts back to Vince and Jerry Lawler, and this was notable, although not yet. Because Vince and Jerry Lawler promote the Rumble, and Vince specifically says, and this Royal Rumble, you're going to see things and people you thought you might never see. And why? Because he's thinking in December of 1995 that for the Rumble, he might just land the Ultimate Warrior. I mean, the Ultimate Warrior in the new generation, Benno, that sounds like that could never work, could it?
Again, feels like someone from 30 years ago at this point. Yeah, it's interesting because obviously we both read a couple of the sheets around this time, and like the touch is like half of the reviews of this show are like, thank God he didn't show up this time, because they're all in fear that he's about to come in and he's about to come and they don't know when it's going to be. It's not that far around the corner, unfortunately. It's not the Rumble, but yeah, they're all just happy he didn't turn up, which would probably be how the people in the company would feel once he does. Looking forward to crossing that old bridge.
Vader, of course. That's another one.
Vader's the other big one. Yeah. Oh, that's a great one. I can't wait to get into that. What could have been with Vader, that's just sliding doors in the WWF. Unfortunately, Sean is half the problem on that one. But yeah, we go from there, speaking of Sean, into a bit of a revenge match for the new and newly turned tweener, I think we'll say, Big Daddy Cool Diesel in against Owen Hart. We're in, as we've said a couple of times, very much in the if you're wearing the black glove, Diesel will slap your hand. If you're not, he will not. We got a little bit of a recap video here, don't we, of the fantastic, as we've watched lyrical about Diesel tweener turn in there, showing you the new attitude to Big Daddy Cool. There's footage of him walking backstage, isn't there, going on his way to shoulder barge some like geeks. I remember rewinding and playing that back a million times when I was a kid, thinking that was the funniest thing I'd ever seen in my life. These two geeks going flying because Diesel's too cool to hold doors for people. But yeah, he's in a weird role, isn't he, at this point, in that he is. He's a tweener, he's kind of a baddie, but he's also avenging Sean. It's heels that he's attacking in the highlights that they show you here. It's Cam Cornette that he's going after, and Owen Hart in particular.
Yeah, it's excellent booking, I think, this story, because if you're going to get the Diesel tweener over, it's smarter to get the babyface half over before the heel. The promo and the attack on Bret is what's established him as a bad guy. But now with the trick, if you're going to make any of this work before you turn him full heel around WrestleMania, is to remind the audience that he can be good too. And Owen Hart as the foil, who at this point, after the 1 week of him and Cornette selling the severity of the Shawn Michaels collapse, for the Owen Hart character to pounce on that and see like he scored points. I'm the guy that took out Shawn Michaels. Hooray for me. And basically get so confident that he set himself an open contract for In Your House, not thinking for a second that Diesel would answer that call. It was so that's just really, really good character-driven storytelling for both of them. And obviously the build, it's benefited massively by the fact that it is Diesel and Owen Hart, and they're so embedded in this roster and this sort of generation of wrestlers.
Don't you think, my EWR game, when I book around this period, Owen Hart, Owen's one where, like you say, he's a bit of a sacred cow in ways, and it can happen, when guys tragically die young. They can be overrated, they can be underrated, and your line in the sand could be anywhere, in between. But I always had a soft spot for Owen Hart during his active career, and I'd always find myself, when you gravitate towards the guys who can both go and cook promos and have charisma and are interesting and have characters, Owen Hart's high on that list for all of those categories. Like, this could have been a Diesel in your house defense, couldn't it? Could we have done this instead of giving Davey 2 bites of the cherry, instead of giving Davey 2 more bites of the cherry in 1996? Like, I think Owen could have done a little bit more in this role. Like, it's a short match and it serves this purpose of the story of Diesel avenging Shawn. But I could absolutely picture this going longer and being one of those, who are Diesel and Sid's great opponents? It should be Bret, it should be Shawn, it should be Jeff, and it should be Owen. I think I could have seen that with a bit more lag. Certainly, if you're gonna try Davey, try Owen, I think.
I wonder, and I'm exactly the same as you. I'd thought for years that it's odd that an Owen Hart would kind of go to waste while you're seeing a lot of worse opponents or worse matches. And then it's only when we've done this podcast and there's that interesting note in the torch around In Your House too that Owen very nearly got fired. And then when he doesn't get fired, when he doesn't get fired, what do you see him do at In Your House 3? Be the guy that runs in and immediately takes the jackknife for the 3. So I think our view outwardly, perception-wise, of Owen Hart in 1995 is quite different to the internal review on him. Yeah. He recovers it, I sense, in 1996 because they know he's such a valuable guy for Shawn Michaels, not just before he wins the belt, but afterwards as well. Like, one of the absolute safest people for Shawn to work as a heel. Camp Cornette grow in stature and grow in power throughout 1996, and by then he's part of the furniture again. But I think upon our review of 1995, you do see them making him a bit more of a bit part player. Even Yoko, the guy that Owen has to carry as a partner, gets more exposure than Owen himself in 95.
Absolutely, yeah. Yoko's just like, he gets dumped by Diesel in the video package, and Hoffman gets told that they're having a Raw match coming up. He's not the big player you would think you would. Like, again, out of that stable, if they're your 3, Bulldog, Owen, and Yoko. And I feel like we're hating on Bulldog, and there's plenty to praise about Bulldog on this show. We're going to get there, but he'd be number 3 out of the 3. It's interesting to go the other route both times, at least at this period. But yeah, obviously, the other thing as well, you say, to case in point for what you're saying, Owen's entrance happens while this video package is playing. They come back to the arena and he's just already in the ring. Much Owen Hart. He's just about getting in the ring. He's a couple of seconds away from being already in the ring. Owen Hart. Diesel's entrance obviously gets covered in full detail, as we are. Like, say, full black over Diesel here, and it's a very short match. Like, he batters Owen in the early stages. It's a bit more of a deliberate version of like the babyface shine compared to what we got at the start of 95 in the Jeff Jarrett match that we talked about. Owen gets a bit of a mini comeback, doesn't he, with a bit of a wheel kick. He does a drop kick off the top, which always looked good. Always wanted to be Owen. He was always the in-ring style wrestler I thought I could be when I was a kid, because he's kind of like, he was a technical guy, but he was also a flyer. He did all the cool shit, didn't he? Always loved his offense. So takes out the leg for a bit, goes for the insecurity, which is obviously the big spot for Owen Hart during this point. Doesn't kill Diesel like it did Shawn, because it pretty much immediately leads to his comeback. And the story of the match, like I say, it is only 4 minutes. Is that he hits the big jackknife powerbomb, and instead he shouts out Shawn, doesn't he? He says, "This is for you, Shawn. We must be on his hospital bed somewhere." Instead of going for the pin, he shoves the ref and goes for more power bombs, which leads to the DQ here. So again, means to an end to get over what Diesel's after here and this new edged character. And like I say, we keep saying it, Steve Austin's just coming into the company, but like, there's the fans are gravitating here towards a babyface who says what he says and means what he says and beats the shit out of the heels and does whatever he fucking wants, and you can see the people reacting to it in the audience. It's shit for Owen, but it's a fucking good night at the office for Big Daddy Cool.
It is. You've done a brilliant job there of laying out what made the Diesel character instantly click, no pun intended, in this new role. But there is a spot in this match that is just different gravy click, and it's it can be both, actually. It's both politically just the most nailed on click bit of bullshit that you can imagine, and also psychologically a gorgeous touch, right? A gorgeous detail. So Owen puts Diesel down with the enziguri, and he goes for the legs, and it appears that he's going to go for the sharpshooter. And for Diesel, after the Survivor Series, that's like a trauma flashback. And he kicks him full force before Owen can even lock the sharpshooter on, and it sends Owen into the post, and that's how Diesel gets the momentum back. And it's as if that feeling of being about to be put in the sharpshooter is Diesel going, no, never again. Fuck you, Bret. And it's like, again, you can read that two ways. You can either read it as he knows he's going to fight Bret again, and he's not going to allow Bret to get his legs like he has done in the past, or it's just a little bit of, I'm harder than Bret, and like I'm better than Bret. It's possibly, but I love that was the sort of defining spot that got Diesel back into the match, because it is as soon as Owen goes to cross the legs, kick, bang, and it's like, for Diesel, never again. Like, I'm not getting put in the sharpshooter again. And I love that as an added layer, because otherwise it's a total battering, but it's not a burial. It's a battering with a cause. It's Diesel getting this gimmick over and getting it across, and he's not afraid, as Gorilla Monsoon would say, he's willing to take the loser's share of the purse money in order to enact violence. All of a sudden, violence and revenge are motivations, because money made him the smiling guy on the front cover of the magazine. Violence is what made him Diesel, and I think this gets that across quite well.
He's like a peak TV anti-hero, isn't he? He's Walter White. Yeah. He's like Tony Soprano. He's name your guy, where like you shouldn't really be cheering for him, but you are, because you're watching it from their point of view, and it's that justified kind of heelish kind of guy that he is here. You're seeing it all like taking place in front of you. No, absolutely. That's a really good point. And the other one is like they put over, again, the insecurity being death, and Vince has to kind of cover for it when Diesel kicks out and be like, oh, but you know, Shawn he'd been beaten up by the Marines and Dean Douglas, and he starts naming all these different things that had happened to him just to get. It wasn't just the insecurity. It's like, oh, come on, let Owen have that. But you'd think it'd be more than a slightly a fall here. But yeah, absolutely, that's what we're getting over here, and it's job done. Like, Diesel's a house on fire here. Again, he looks motivated. He looks excited to actually be at work, and he looks like he believes in what he's doing. And it's just a really
he's tied the hair back here as well, isn't he? He's tied the hair back with the glasses. It's a good look. Like the different.
Bet you loving the jacket on the promo when he was he's out there outside, outside of the ring as well on Raw, not in the ring, stood on the outside. I love that about it too. Another punk.
He's got the cap. He's got the Fed cap. He's got the bum bag with the full of gimmicks, and he's got his leather jacket on over his daytime trousers. He's not bothered getting into like promo attire. There is, of course, one fan who's not that arsed about Diesel, because we go back to sign watch in Philadelphia, Benno, because there was a sign that was held up that said Diesel call 911. So there was another big man that was more popular in Philadelphia, and it was still 911's time. Ah,
they're not hoodwinking me with that. Nash shits on 911 as a way. But he was in ECW, so it's fine. But yeah, that made me laugh as well. But yeah, good stuff there from Diesel. Obviously, we got a bit of foreshadowing for what's going to come at the very end of the show as well, as Diesel is headed right to the top, and he does the little motioning he doesn't he with the wanting the belt. So that will come off later. I'd say I'd love to get to the next match, because I wouldn't love to get to the next match. But between there's a bit of shite on this show, both in segment and in match, as this is where we do get the Santa Claus angle with Ted DiBiase. He's in the ring weirdly, and his music's playing as Savio Vega and supposedly Father Christmas giving out stuff to the crowd, presents or whatever they're doing. DiBiase tries to tell Savio that anyone's got a price, and he should come in the ring, and it's actually Swerve Santa that is sold out to the $1 Million Man. Cue the commentators trying to sell this like it's all a big gigantic shoot, and this is the real Santa, and he's turned heel until he find out it's not quite the real Santa. What are they doing here, mate? What is this?
I don't know. Again, you could almost justify it as a singular segment if they didn't then do that Superstars match where Santa Claus works and Balls Mahoney's got his Christmas rebadge, and like the Boo Radley, was he?
Boo Radley,
Boo Bradley, and
he hadn't been to ACW yet, had he? Smoky Mountain.
Yeah. So Smoky Mountain I think it had just closed its doors. So this is probably Jim Cornette looking to get as many of his guys jobs as they can, because now that Smoky Mountain's gone, and Vince McMahon sees a slightly heavy set guy with a beard in December and thinks, I've got just the role for you. The problem, of course, Benno, is I didn't get my doctorate in Fedication by only watching Bret and Shawn. And yes, Santa Claus is an all-timer worse idea. And yes, it's a Hall of Fame bit of wrestle crap. However, the one Santa Claus match the inverse black and red Santa Claus gear is pretty good. The Santa Claus away kit. Santa Claus's away kit is good stuff. Like if Santa Claus had made it to WrestleMania, it'd have been the white and red reversed, so he'd be white with red trim. And I mean, imagine Santa Claus's WrestleMania gear. I'm just.
Do you know why I can't, mate? You know? Because WrestleMania is fucking April. What are they thinking? He could have been the Easter Bunny by then.
Fine. Put him in DX and have him in neon green and black Santa gear and
like Green Cane, like we used to get rumored on the forum in the news site.
Right, it's other than the jacket and the hat, which would look pretty cool in black and red. Yes, a disaster, a complete and total disaster. Poor Savio as well, because what do you do if you're Savio Vega? Like, go in the ring and be a babyface and don't spoil it for the kids. Yes, I believe in Santa Claus. Like, I'm fine with that. Yeah, the babyface can say that, and they should as well. But like, they don't even let him do it with conviction. They kind of make him go like, "Yeah, Santa's," and then DiBiase is like, "Come on, Savio, you stupid idiot! Like, admit it." And
while Lawler's being racist
Claus.
On commentary. Yep.
That as well. That's pretty gross as well.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure he's picking the wrong country there to be racist. The whole thing's it's just bizarre. It's just like what were they thinking like in this moment? And it's like, again, you mentioned there about like the gear and stuff like that. Even talking about those news sites, it was the one positive out of this. How many like those e-feds I used to be in? I was in the hardcore e-feds. They were trivia feds. So to win your matches, it wasn't that you had to cut the best promo. You had to beat your opponents in a 10 out of 10 quiz game and get more questions right out of the 10 than they did. And like a question that would always come up in those e-feds was, who portrayed the role of Santa Claus? It's like one of those wrestling nuggets of information, isn't it? That you just keep. Yeah. And once you find it out, you think you're the smartest man in the room. Because did you know that that bloke whose beard falls off and hat falls off and Vince realizes it's not really the real Father Christmas? That was Balls Mahoney. Like, we all had that, didn't we, as our little trivia note. Did you know Ric Flair's real name is Richard Morgan Flair? It's one of those. Did you know Shawn Michaels was Michael Hickenbottom? All those little factoids.
You'd know that if you were doing an e-fed with quizzes in 2003, because Triple H was obsessed with saying Richard Fleer because it made him sound like more of a fan than everybody else, didn't it? Yeah. It's only just occurred to me now, Benno. Those e-feds, you've mentioned these before. The e-feds where you do the quiz and whoever gets the most questions right wins the match. Is that not a bit like UFC e-fedding? Because it means the booker can't book stories. Like, what if
it's a problem,
me and you have done these like amazing promos and we've done it in such a way where we've structured this months-long story for you to beat me, but then I get 9 out of 10 and you get 8. Does that not fuck it all up?
You know what? There was one e-fed I ran my own for 2 shows because it was fucking hard work writing out those shows. And for the 2 shows I did, when I had like inconvenient results like that, I just lie and pretend the other person lost. So if anybody was in my e-fed and portrayed Triple H, yeah, sorry mate, you were supposed to go over Goldberg. It wasn't supposed to be Goldberg that was winning, but it was better for my story, so I told it the other way. You are right though. Yeah. It was basically an MMA. It was a shoot fight league is what we did. It was geeky wrestling trivia that we all cheated on anyway, because even back then you could Google stuff or Bing stuff. Or what would have been Ask Jeeves back then.
Ask Jeeves, yeah.
Yahoo search.
Go on Yahoo.
Big one.
Yeah, that's the one.
The forerunner to Google. But great times, great memories. But yeah, not such great memories for Savio Vega or the fleeting appearances of Santa Claus. Maybe somebody will pick that Superstars match for a 5-star match review. Maybe we'll get there. But
here we go then. I'll let you beat me in an e-fed quiz match right now if you can name who his opponent was without checking.
I genuinely don't know, because I half remember them interacting with Steve Austin, and I'm obviously wrong because that can't possibly be the case now, because it's a year before even I thought it took place. I'll go for a random one. Got to be a babyface. Marty Jannetty.
No, but I love how your wrestling brain is so close to the answer anyway, and it's just jumbled a few facts, right? So what you're thinking of is in 97, when Steve Austin stuns a heel Santa Claus.
Yes.
There's like a Santa Claus that's been an arsehole and Austin drills him with a stunner and all of that. But what you might be thinking of is Steve Austin, right around this time when he debuts and he's in the green Ted DiBiase trunks, gets one of his first TV victories over a young Scott Taylor. Because it's Scott Taylor who Santa Claus beats in a TV taping. Scotty Too Hotty gets beat off Balls Mahoney a couple of years before. They're both big names in the late 90s.
Oh, Maybe we'll do it as a double. Somebody pick us the Austin debut as well, because I've got great memories of that when he puts his hand on the camera and he's asking you to touch the hand of greatness. Yes, I touched our portable TV in the spare room when he put his hand on there.
The fingers taped, doesn't he? He's got he's got like the flare tape around the fingers and stuff. Touch my hand.
Superb.
Him and Yuri Geller. If he touched the screen, England would win the Euros and Steve Austin would win the belt.
One of the things was right out of the two. It did turn out at the end, but maybe we'll revisit that again. Good plug for the housekeepings. Get your 5-star reviews in. Do a 5-star review. You can pick a match we'll review in a future one. Pop it in your review and let us know. We'll plug that heavy at the end as we do. But moving on from there, I wish things got better, mate. But we get what has been threatened to us. I feel like there's three consistencies across these In Your Houses so far. I feel like every show has a pre-show match that we don't get to see that has Savio Vega in it. And every show has a post-match in it, like this one does, that has that Dr. Isaac Yankem, who we've somehow been shielded from having to watch some of those matches that have we'll just give them to the house. We'll give them the treat of getting to see Dr. Isaac Yankem at this stage. And the other one that I feel like's been on everyone, whether Undertaker's been on the show or not, is a casket match for the house. This one we get for in our house. They come into our house as the Undertaker in his Phantom of the Opera mask is facing King Mabel with Sir Mo. Mabel's not scared of Undertaker, allegedly, we're told. We know that from the BSK spray painted on his casket. What a fucking gang of nerds those lads are. Why is it cool, by the way, when the click through the click sign and they're all over these shows? We think that's cool. When BSK do it, we're like, fucking nerds. What are you doing? Yeah. You're almost 30. Why do you just think you're in a gang? What's the difference?
Losers, man. My mind was blown. You know, at the Survivor Series 95, the dark side. My mind was blown when I realised it's Undertaker, Savio, Fatu, and Henry Godwin. He's got his fucking BSK, his little Survivor Series team, friends. Oh, dead man friends. Like, he's done it. Like, I'd never, until years later when you read who was in the group, and it's like, like, the Click were never a Survivor Series team, but the Undertaker got his mates in the big match, and nobody got eliminated. Like, nobody from the BSK got pinned. Like, all the royals were sent packing.
Of course, that's it's one of them. It's like, you know what I think the answer is? I think it's that the Click were cool and understood business, and they were a gang of mid-card nerds. Like, to a man, really. Got a soft spot for Savio. That's about it, really, when you name those names. Even on the other end, like you say, Mabel possibly being a side member, Yoko being a side member. Not really any people that I would rave about, to be honest.
It's like when he launched the Ministry of Darkness, and it's like, all right, fair enough. All right, you be the Lord of Darkness, and you be the god of all of WWF. Why are you picking such shit wrestlers? Like, if you've got all these powers, why are you settling for Midian? Like, you could get anybody you wanted. Like, I don't know.
It's pure school, isn't it? And the Click have just got all the cool kids. They've gone, you can't hang around with us. You're not cool enough. You're not good enough. Apart from Just Incredible, we'll win, but no others. No Justins were allowed to have one. I'm pretty sure that was the rule in the Click. But they pick better. It's a better roster. Sorry, it's true.
It is. And even then, like, they were smarter politically with the losers, because even Just Incredible, every stable needs a pin eater or a whipping boy, and they had Just Incredible on hand to be the ones that even then they needed nobody to like take the L's backstage. They needed somebody to distract Bam Bam Bigelow to go to the other bar so they could get out of the building, and that was what Just Incredible's job was. So like, I'd forgotten the detail here until we watched this. There's a video package setting up how Mabel ran at the Survivor Series, and Mabel saying he's not scared of the Undertaker. He injured him and he'll injure him again and all of that. Karma, Benno, stole the Undertaker's urn at WrestleMania, and he still hasn't got the fucking thing back because it's still a chain, and now Mabel's got it and he's giving it to Mo. It's December.
Did I miss something? How did it get from Kama to Mabel and Mo? Like, was that in this video recap? I don't think I caught it.
So what happened was, Mabel, obviously, Karma burns it down and it becomes this chain, basically. And then Undertaker beats Karma at SummerSlam in a casket match, but the corporation still have possession of the urn. Right. But on TV in like November or something, Undertaker's fighting Karma. And in that match, he finally gets the chain. He finally gets the chain, and he gives it to Paul Bearer. and then the match carries on, and then Mabel and Mo come and nick it off Paul Bearer, and then Undertaker kind of gives chase, and you see Mabel running off again, and the idea is like, they've nicked the remnants of the urn, but they're still running from the Undertaker. So this is how to like tie it all up at long last. Because Mo comes out with the chain around his neck, doesn't he?
Meanwhile, Kama's not asked anymore. Doesn't care. Moved on with his life.
No, Kama doesn't give a toss. No, he's obviously worried about keeping his job in the restructured corporation because DiBiase has just brought a mall Santa in. So he's thinking, how am I?
He's eyeing up UFC, mate. He's thinking that's where I can make my money. Jump over there. Which Undertaker obviously wishes he could have done if he could have lived it again. But sadly, he's doing casket matches on In Your Houses instead. What a shame.
Speaking of the entrance, by the way, BSK all day on the coffin. Did you see Matt and Jeff Hardy carrying Mabel in the chair?
Oh, no. I've seen that clip before, but I didn't catch it was them watching this back. Of course.
They're two at the front struggling to hold him in the chair.
Like fucking 10. Just ridiculous, isn't it? How long they were around. On TV doing stuff as well during this period. I didn't spot it. But yeah, they have a few cameos like this, don't they? King of the Ring is...
I was going to say, is it 95 where they're the King of the Ring doorman? I think it is.
Yeah, and the doors get... Who busts the doors open and they go flying? I feel like, is that them?
I know, who busts the doors open? Who else could... It's Ahmed.
I thought it was.
It's Ahmed, of course.
It must be 96, though, yeah. Oh, brilliant. Well, that's brilliant. The match is not. It's every Undertaker casket match you've ever seen. I'm loath to break it down. The usual Undertaker shine. Mabel teases the leg drop, which he's doing a lot safer than he did a couple of months ago. It's obviously all build up to the casket shenanigans. Mo tries to put Undertaker in the casket. For some reason, Mabel doesn't want to shut the lid until he gets his crown on. Does a bit of a jig, and gets there, only for Undertaker to do... It's all set up for him to do the shit zombie hand, which they shoot terribly, because you can literally see Undertaker lying in the casket with one eye open, with his hand ready to grab whoever's coming. It's like, at least shoot it from the back, make it look good. That's shit. Undertaker gets a choke slam to Mabel. That's shit. Gets no height on it. Big boot to the back of the head. That was pretty cool. Not as cool as Ahmed Johnson taking a block to the back of the head, but that was it. Undertaker throws Mo into. This is where the air necklace comes into it, doesn't it? Because he won't shut the lid until he gets his necklace back. And then he gets it and he's done. Have I missed anything, mate? Is there anything more to say on this? It's a casket match.
It's rubbish. And I just hate any time a wrestler, and I remember this as a kid, I hate it when a wrestler is thick. Like, we saw this with Sid. They love this in 95 because it's such a babyface promotion. The heels get nothing. It's like when Sid has Diesel beat and just doesn't pin him, and Mabel has like Undertaker out and doesn't close the lid. It's like babyfaces celebrating count out wins and thinking they've won the title, and then kicking off when the referee takes the belt and gives it back to the heel. I just hate that. Like, well, if I know the rules, surely your job, is something you should understand like I do. Close the fucking lid, you stupid idiot. Like, it's just so lazy. It's so lazy that's the only thing they can think of as like why would Mabel not close the lid? Well, he's got to get his crown, obviously. Why? And then as well, and we talked about this when they have to edit it out, when Sean puts that crown on and it's too big for his head. Mabel's crown is the shittest crown ever, isn't it? It bounces off his head and it's a Burger King crown just bouncing around the ring, and you're like, oh God. The Fed that I love is cheap as shit. Like, it's never looked like the prop budget is through the floor. Like, the creative's bad. It's an old casket from 93, 94. They've had to graffiti up to make it more like 95 based. I hate it. And then the Undertaker wants the belt, and it's like, oh Christ! Now he's getting in the title picture, and I didn't even like him then. It's like I don't want any of this.
It looks wrong, doesn't it? Him doing the Diesel motion and him like doing the belt sign, like he's really hungry. Like it's too hungry for belts. Like he
puts his belly out. Yeah.
Oh, what's the difference, by the way, between do you know what's the difference? Is a casket just American for coffin? Because there was coffin matches early on when the Undertaker was there. Is it just that it's bigger? Is that what it is? It's bigger for wrestling. It's a bit more velvety, isn't it? Like the insides are a bit nicer. Like I've seen like British indies do coffin matches. I guess over here, casket doesn't carry the same weight, but it's always a weird thing about wrestling.
I think coffins are scarier. I've always had it that the coffins are those like rectangular ones where the Warrior got locked in, or the one that like Darby Allin takes the bump through, and the caskets are sort of 6 or 8 sided and they're a bit more like ceremonial, and they look comfy. The one that Yokozuna gets put in at the Royal Rumble 94 looks comfy.
I feel like a waste of
the double deep, double wide is quite a nice little. You could sell that as an Airbnb, I think, in like New York where they're selling those pods. Just get the Yokozuna 94 coffin, and you could have it as an access if you're like tired over WrestleMania weekend.
Good work. Was that another one of your trivia notes that you'd learn through like wrestling trivia and stuff? Did you know it was Marty Jannetty who was dressed up as the Undertaker when the heels put him in the casket and he rises up? Was that King of the Ring 93? When that
Rumble
happens,
94, isn't it?
Rumble rises, Rumble when it happens. That was the big one, though, wasn't it? Did you know that was actually Marty Jannetty? I presume it was.
I think he dispelled it. I'm sure Marty Jannetty dispelled it, but because it's Marty, nobody believes if he's telling the truth or not. So it's remained
Sean,
like law. Yeah.
He's relied on that.
A mystery ever since, and like Sean's thinking, yeah, that's Marty for you. I'll baptize him again whenever he's ready. Only happy to help. Yeah.
Oh Christ! Well, on from there, we go backstage to Jim Cornette, who's doing the Lord's work, carrying Davey Boy Smith heel experiments. Whatever you want to say about Jim Cornette, he is so good at getting it over. Obviously, Diana's there, as you mentioned earlier, like bringing up the family dynamic. As we've said, bringing up 1992, which does feel like decades ago at this point. Weaving it all in to make sense, putting Diana on the spot, who's got no doubt this time about Davey, and loyalty is absolutely not as split as it was in 1992. Masterclass from Cornette. Davey Boy Smith is also there.
Jesus Christ. They say with Ric Flair, like you graded his 80s match on the broomstick scale because it was said that he could carry a broomstick to 3 stars. Jim Ross carries 2 because Davey and Diana are the shit here. And Jim Cornette, he basically does a Wikipedia entry entitled How Bulldog Ruined Bret's Life. And he goes in order. Bulldog rocked up in Stampede Wrestling, and your dad was really impressed by the handsome young Brit. But he only wasn't the only one that was impressed, was he? All your brothers liked him more. And you know who else liked him more? Your sister. You thought you were going to be a hero, but she fell in love with the Brit that your dad loved. And what made it worse was the guy that she loved instead of you beat you at SummerSlam. And it's like, Bret's got nothing left. Bulldog, Cornette makes it look as if Bulldog swept into town and took everything from Bret, piece by piece it's incredible, this. Absolutely incredible. Throw to Bulldog. Repeat one of the lines in your house. Diana, he beat you twice and he's going to beat you again. Yeah, he said that. You got anything else? All right. Back to you, Vince. Just like... There's that one we covered it in your house 4 where Jim Cornette's like, fire up, Davey. just repeats
got one more, Daddy.
In your house.
Just saying things really northern. It's what he does, and it is part of his charm. But fucking hell, it's a lump that Cordy is carrying. Again, proven by the number, and the numbers are much better for the show matches when we get there as well. But
yeah, there's so many Bulldog main events left, isn't there? He got so many goals, didn't he, Bulldog?
Yeah, we've got a few to come. But yeah, interesting note from this. Before we skip on, actually, we do get a Bret promo as well. Did you notice his glasses with the Sharpie pen marker on? He'd written WWF World Champ on the front. I don't know what he'd written on the other 2 sides. I assume one was his autograph, maybe.
On one side it was an autograph, and on the other side it was probably stop talking about Sean and Diesel or something like that.
He is fucking motivated on this night. He's clearly been filled in that, you're the champion, mate. Yeah, we're going to have you beat your Diesel, but you're putting Sean over at Mania. And he's clearly mentally gone, well, I'm going to give you the best fucking 5 months that I can possibly give you, because he is ready to go. And it's a good one as well for your catalogue of Bret promos where he's cutting that promo and he says one too many words and then his music hits. This one, it's Davey's music, but it's still the same effect.
He's getting played off, and it's just like, best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. And Bulldog, you're going down. Oh, Bret, mate. I love you so much, but shut up.
Oh, it's superb. But yeah, we go to the entrances. We have Lawler mentions that the Bulldog is out here in the Wembley tights. No, he's not. I knew that from sight. I knew that from sight, never mind. Like, I did Google it. I thought, maybe I'm wrong. No, he's definitely not. It's just some tights that got a bit flag on it.
A stupid and pointless lie. Like, it would have been the easiest. And to be fair to Lawler, it would have been pretty easy for Bulldog to wear those tights. I bet he sold them on his 93 indie run or something like that, and he just couldn't be asked to get some new ones made.
They're somewhere in Germany, aren't they? Like, they're just left there at the floor of a hostel somewhere or something like that. Or he just thinks they're the Wembley tights, and he actually doesn't know that they're not the Wembley tights. That is also a plausible explanation for Davey during that period. But if we've been a bit negative on the last couple of segments, I think we're going to be joined in our love of this, because, like I said, Bret is on. Bret knows, like, I've got it's statement stuff, I think, for Bret in these next couple of months. And, you know, for the negatives I can say about Davey, like, he's a bit of a lump, but he's a lump that can be carried. And, like, honestly, he's just like, it feels like more of a knock than I mean it, but he is just a warm body when he's in there with Bret. Because, you know, going back to the SummerSlam 92 match, Bret's calling everything, as he literally did in that match. Bret is coming up with all the ideas. Bret is just like, Davey, be here then, be there then, and if you forget, I'll tell you in the ring what you're going to do. Like, it's just Bret Hart with, like, just a blank canvas, isn't it? This match, as we get into it.
I think for years, it was sort of as Matty of your parish would say, the IWC take, but I think it was like seen as the hipster opinion that this was the better match than Wembley. But the reason that I think this is the better match than Wembley is everything you've just said, but the difference is Bulldog is mentally there for it. Whereas the first time, he's kind of, Bret's calling it and it's on a wing and a prayer. This time, yes, Bret is calling it, but Davey is there for it too, and is able to give as good as he gets rather than being kind of like dragged by his nose through the spots, which you can kind of see at points in the Wembley match. Not so much here. Like, yes, there's obvious structuring that Bret has put in place, and he goes into massive detail in his book about that. But he can rely on Davey being there for some key moments. And there's a couple of points early on where it doesn't go wrong, but it maybe looks like it goes a bit skew-if. In 92, what the hell are they going to do? In 95, Bulldog just cracks on and fixes it. There's like a really lovely spot where he puts Bret in the tree of woe and then like inadvertently swings and knocks over Earl Hebner. And I don't know if this is supposed to be a callback, but because Diesel got disqualified, he picks him up. And it's like, accident, I want to win the belt, I don't want to get disqualified, accident. You're telling me in 1992, Bulldog's going to have had the wherewithal for that? He's not, is he? And he's just... He's in it. He's invested in this one, and I think even there's probably a little bit of sense in that he wants to give back because he knows what Bret did for him that night.
Absolutely, and like it's there in the early stages of the match. It's, you know, like I said it last time. You know, Bulldog's on when he's doing cartwheels, and he's there for the technical with Bret in the early moments. If he does a little headstand, he does a cartwheel, or if there's a surfboard at any point in the match, Davey's on that night, and he's remembered his own move set. Like, there's loads of just fun little stuff early on. Obviously, Bulldog's kind of... It feels like a heat moment early in the match when he takes over with, like, the kitchen sink. Because this match, I feel like, obviously, there's a point where it gets to the other gear when the big incident happens. But even early on, it feels like a modern match. And, like, they go from, like, Davey heat to, like, Bret gets a comeback with a fucking sick looking pile driver. Like, it feels like they go to the top rope for a superplex, which feels like it would be like a high spot near the finish in a match. Davey kind of counters it, like crotching Bret, and it's like you can just feel like they are on here, they are locked in, and Bret is out there to prove things. Like, even before we get to the main crux of the story, which is the Bret blood, which we're about to get to, these early stages, like that, it's a great match in itself. It's like a match within a match, I think, the early bit.
Yeah. The pile driver you mentioned, he just drills him with that. Like, obviously, Bret protects Davey you can imagine, but nonetheless, the sell from Davey Boy Smith is one of the best things you'll ever see from the Bulldog. What I love, and this is the kind of thing where you're probably the same as me. You've watched this match a lot, and it was always one of the ones that it kind of escaped this pay-per-view, didn't it? They put it on Raw in January. They would show it on From the Vault from time to time. It made a bunch of videos and DVDs and the like. So it was something that you would see quite a bit of this match. So it does feel like one I'm very familiar with. And maybe this take is informed by just being able to visualize so much of the match in my head. But something Bret, when he was like, because he was so amazing at everything, as long as he trusted the commentary and the presentation and his opponent, he put over that he was technically the best. He was very selfless in little ways. So there's you pointed out how it's like there's a match within a match before you get to what is the real inciting incident. And what that does is it makes you forget that the inciting incident is coming because you feel like you're already watching this back and forth. And Bret does this stuff where like he's technically the best, right? In kayfabe and otherwise, he's the excellence of execution. But how do you make the Bulldog look like you're equal? You leave your arm out for the Bulldog to grab, or you leave a leg for the Bulldog to counter. And Bret wouldn't do that for everybody, but in order to help get his opponent and the story over, he does it here. And again, it's maybe just through watching stuff like this 100 times and just really enjoying the intricacies of Bret work. Because there's one bit where I was like, oh, God, no. And it's where Bulldog does the same lying down leg lock that he does to Diesel.
Yes.
But he only does it because it's there for Bret to counter. It exists for another purpose. But he's given Bulldog the leg in the first place, and it makes Bulldog look like he's Bret's equal because that's the story of he's beaten him before. Has he got Bret's number? Can he do everything that Bret does, but stronger and faster? And for Bret to kind of be so selfless with giving his style to somebody else, I think it's just another reason why he was so. I mean, this is the Sean podcast as much as the Bret one. Sean would just blow you up and take the piss out of you if you tried to be Sean. Like, there's not many people that keep up with Shawn Michaels. No. Here, Bret acknowledges that Bulldog can't and says, I'm going to make you look like the excellence of execution as well. And I just think that's so amazing.
It's the anti-Davey Richards. Like, he's watched that. Like, Sean probably wouldn't watch that Diesel match, but Bret's watched it and going, oh, you did that leg lock? I know, we can put this spot before it, that spot after it. He's working through it. It's like I saw Lance Storm work a PCW show against Martin Kirby. I forget what Martin Kirby's big spot was, but I heard Lance Storm on his podcast talk about, like, he watched Martin Kirby make his entrance on the video package and saw Martin Kirby do his big like special move that he did and was like, okay, I'm going to put that in the match, and then called it 5 minutes later in the match, and Kirby was like, how the fuck do you know I do that spot? He's like, I watched the video. Like, and it's just like, that's the level, that's the type of wrestler Bret is. It's like, okay, I can see where I can fit that in and make that work. Brilliant stuff. But yeah, it is, he's given Davey everything, and like the blood, like, it's just like, I mean, maybe this is why it was the hardcore favorite back on, why, like you say, Raw is where I would have first saw this match, and why it became so like vaunted, because it was against the times. Like the Torch headline that we had to look at for this week is like talks about it like as a hardcore match, talks about it as WWE going back on some of the things they said they'd never do out here. But fuck me, it's a lot of bloods. Do you think it's legit? The Torch seems to think it doesn't quite go as far as again what your dad would say, which was that just tomato sauce, that lad. They talk about maybe it being a blood packet and maybe it not being a blade job. It's a bit like when Drew and Punk did it last year, isn't it? Where like half the conversation was, oh, that was fucking cool to see blood in a WWE match, and half the conversation was, but was it real blood? As if it really matters. I think it's a shoot. I'm not sure. Did you have a take on that?
I am so confident in Bret's ability to do everything perfect. I believe it to be blood. That's like, it's the same as how the WrestleMania 8 thing where Flair gets fined and Bret doesn't. Like, this is one of those situations where, like, Vince is playing both sides here, isn't he? Because Bret's gone into business for himself with this cut because he can visualize how the match will look if he's drenched in blood. But then by Vince verbally saying, shoot wide, and get the camera off Bret while he's bleeding, it makes
show
Vince
Diana 400
like,
times.
Like, it makes Vince seem like, we don't endorse that barbaric practice, but Bret's really in trouble because he's bleeding out here, and he's having his cake and eating it, isn't he? And then they replay the match on Raw, and you remember the Raw magazine spread, bloodbath, and it was the close-up images of Bret soaked in blood. The white of Bulldog's tights has gone red. And like the referee's got the blood stained on him and stuff like that. It's just there's a series that for WhatCulture, me and Sidge have launched best match ever. And a couple of weeks ago we covered Cody versus Dustin, and it reminded me a lot of Dustin's blade job from Double or Nothing 2019 in the fact that the pool is so immediate and the spread is so vast and far-reaching on clothes, on the canvas, on hands and things like that, that even if the blood was to stop there and then, the effect has been achieved.
Absolutely. Blood's it's fucking great, isn't it, in wrestling when it's done well, and it's done well like in that match, and it's done well here. Like it adds so much. It just brings it up another level, especially in this sanitized WWF that we're watching here. Like say I mentioned the 15 on the tape already, making this seem like a cooler event than it was. Oh, it adds so much to them just doing it. And there are nods obviously in the early stages to the SummerSlam '92 match. They could have just gone beat for beat doing a similar match to that, and there are other nods coming, but it gives it a completely different type of match, doesn't it? Completely different level.
I go hot and cold on Blood because I was very affected by seeing the Nigel McGuinness documentary for the first time, and I think as my fan journey at that point, I'd gone quite soft in my sensibilities because of not to get too deep and meaningfully, but I'd gone quite soft in my sensibilities because of the Benoit family tragedy. And I was thinking, I want more Bret stuff where nobody gets hurt. I want big bombastic nonsense where the pressure isn't on guys to half kill themselves, lest you get more tragedies. And then you get the McGuinness story, and then I'm like, you know what? Get rid of blood, get rid of headshots. We can do without. And then I think when it was overdone by someone like a John Moxley, I was like, I am actually sick of it again. But when it's done right, there isn't much like it. It's probably no coincidence that we speak so highly of Dustin and Cody and a match like this and Austin and Bret at WrestleMania 13. At its peak, it does kind of reflect some of the all-timer moments, and it does stand up for itself, I think. But you almost don't know whether or not it's achieved its goal until it's already happened, and by then it's happened and somebody's bleeding all over. And when it's done to excess or done in a way that feels wasteful, it's pointless, isn't it? And it's like, what have you done that for? It hasn't worked. It hasn't told the story. But when it's done well, it is kind of magic.
That's true of everything, isn't it? Like any storytelling device, you do with John Moxley, and you do it every week. And obviously he's laid off on that, for a while. But it just becomes less special, it becomes less important, less impactful. Whatever word you want to use, it's very clearly, not the ideal. And this is the ideal. You're getting it when you're not expecting it, or getting it in the dramatic match, like you Dustin and Cody, that type of thing. Because, like you say, it doesn't affect the art either in this match. Because, yes, we presume that's real blood from Bret. But the rest of it is it's magic. It's the man working his magic, because it changes the gear of the match. Your Davey comes back with his own pile driver, which looks just as mean as Bret's one, but even better because he's bleeding at the time, and his face is kind of covered in the blood, which actually quite quickly starts to dry up. It adds to I think the Diana stuff I joked about before, it gets a bit much, and it's a bit too much of a nod for me to the 1992 stuff, like bringing her back on camera. Is she concerned about Davey, or is she concerned about the fact that Bret's bleeding now? It does add a bit of a layer of the story there, but even down to without jumping ahead too much, Bret goes for a sharpshooter at one point, doesn't he? And he can't quite pull it off because of the blood, because he hasn't got the energy, because he's suffering. That's taken that, and instead of it just being a normal thing that happens in a wrestling match, that's just adding levels, isn't it, to the storytelling, just the chef's kiss drama of that moment. It adds so much to this middle stretch.
Incredible spot. Yeah, the sharpshooter counter is an incredible spot. The Bulldog managing to hit the running power slam, but doing it on the floor, because that's where he's managed to cut in that.
The setup to that, though, is so good. Bret, because Bret's desperate here. So this is telling the story with the blood, because he gets Davey does that running shoulder block, and Bret just goes flying to the outside, which is a brilliant spot. More wrestlers should do stuff like that, but it kind of leads to Bret trying to go for the it's like a tope to the outside, isn't it?
Yes.
And then he goes back and tries to do it's like a Vader bomb, isn't it? Vader's coming in maybe, and he tries, and then Davey catches him. Oh, it's beautiful.
That's it. You can enjoy the grisly visual of him taking the move, but you can appreciate the construction of Bret going, how do I put myself in a position to be power slammed on the floor? That's the spot. And I love that, the sort of the maths and the science of it from Bret. When you've watched the match 10 times and you've simply appreciated the fiction, you can watch it another 10 times and start appreciating how it all got constructed. And there's so much of that in this one.
Yeah. The only negative spot in there is where Davey goes for a flying headbutt to Bret's arse for some reason. I still don't understand what he was trying to do there. Davey's still going to Davey every now and then, but those spots just measure there, which more logical.
We often talk about the Bret bump, the sternum first into the turnbuckle. Bulldog taking that flipping buckle bump.
Oh my God.
Holy shit. He is in the mood. It's Bret. Bret is so
full
desperate
upside
that he's
down.
used every ounce of strength to do an Irish whip. And because even Bulldog is surprised at the strength, he ends up flying, upside down into the post. And that frees Bret up for a superplex. And it's a move that he's otherwise not had the energy to do. But it's almost like the blood loss. You get one big burst. How are you going to use it? And if you're Bret, you use it perfectly. That's the business.
That's a gigantic spot. And obviously, I haven't teased it earlier in the match. Like, again, just chef's kiss Bret stuff, isn't it? He's layering this stuff out right in front of you. They do like a tease of the roll up Wembley finish. It's not quite the sex pin, but even Vince on commentary nods that it's quite similar to the 1992 finish. I will say the finish comes. What do you make of the finish here? Because that kind of builds to. It's like a magistral cradle, essentially, isn't it, from Bret? Like, that's what he hits. Bit out of nowhere, but again, desperation, I suppose. It fits the story of the match. I'd kind of forgotten that was the finish.
Do you know what I thought it was? I can't remember what Bret says in his book. So if he said this, and I've just stolen the take, I apologise, and some people might be catching me out. But my logic for this finish is that Bret lost to Wembley. I like that, by the way, the sex pin. That's what I'm going to think about from now on. He loses at Wembley with the sex pin. And then he loses to Owen at WrestleMania with the countered victory roll in a kind of similar fashion. So what he's done is he's come up with a cradle that cannot be countered. The worst that Bulldog can do is roll, and he can't roll because his arms and legs are both crucifixed by the magistral. So I think Bret has thought of an uncounterable cradle because this is what his family members do to him. That in my mind is the psychology of, if I need something in my back pocket, I cannot go for the victory roll, I cannot go for the sex pin because they've both done me with it. I'll get him this way. And that in my mind is why specifically he's gone for the magistral.
Michael Hamflett, I think you've just given, I think your work right there is giving Bret Hart an extra half star. I'm into it. Like, you add that to everything else in this match. The layers that are there, like I say, the drama that's there because of the blood, the desperation, the Bret thinking outside the box and doing things he wouldn't normally do, selling harder than he normally does, Bulldog coming up with all like the crazy stuff he comes in. You add that to it as well. Oh, you're not getting me this time. I'm going to get you. I love it. I absolutely love it. Like, it's fucking... It is brilliant. Is it controversial to say this is better? And like we said earlier, kind of IWC opinion, so I guess not better than the SummerSlam 92 match. I think it is, isn't it? It's artistically, like you said earlier, Davey's on, so it's a different match. It's got the blood element, it's got that drama element to it. The execution's a lot better. Yeah, it's probably the opposite of a controversial opinion, isn't it? It's just fact. This is better than the SummerSlam 92 match.
Wrestling should be the opposite to films in terms of sequels, because in films, sequels are kind of relying on so much from the first one to carry inferior copy of a coffee stuff over the line. In wrestling, it's adding story. A sequel should be better because you've already got the story of the first match to build off of. You're not using a blank canvas. Like we talk about preferring the ladder match at SummerSlam between Shawn and Razor because of what it uses. Bret and Austin, WrestleMania 13, is a sequel to the Survivor Series. Again, they're both glorious matches, but I think the sequel surpasses the original. And this is it, like the sequels or trilogies or however, like Bret Diesel improves until we get to our next in your house, sadly. But the trilogy, the original three, it just gets better and better and better because it's a constant story of Bret needs to figure out how to beat Diesel with his 7-foot frame. Like, the great wrestlers, the great artists should see the sequel as an opportunity, not as a punishment.
And it's like podcaster, mate. First podcast is always good, but once you've got that chemistry and you build it up, you find yourself in your house 5 and look where we are from that very first GRAPPL podcast. But it's true, you should, just as from a shoot point of view, from a human being point of view, you're used to each other's bodies wrestling, you're used to what each other does. Like, it should get better from the first one. It should get better from the more you work together, even if you know each other, as well as these two obviously being up and down the roads in their career since the 80s, as Cornette put over. It's brilliant. I've got a question for you. Is it the best match we've reviewed so far? Is it better than Jeff and Shawn? I don't know if it is, but it's close. It's the first thing that's run it close. I'd be tempted to give it the 4.5, you know. I think it was 4.25 until you talked me around on the finish. I think I might be 4.5 now, which would equal Jeff and Sean. But I don't know. What do you say?
I go Jeff and Sean by a whisker, but only because I think there's a freshness in the energy of it, because they kind of, it's like Sean and Jeff are kind of like passing ships almost. Sean's on his way at the very top. Jeff's on his way out of the company. There was only ever really a chance for them to work as that babyface and that heel, because Sean had only just turned, and like Jeff had never really been a babyface in Sean's orbit. This is just, I consider it like, we're not a Bulldog podcast, are we? We're a British podcast, but we're not a Bulldog podcast. And
or a Regal podcast, but that's a matter for another time. Yeah,
indeed. If Bret could do this with Regal, I'd just have Regal as this one matches all of his 5 on your list. I think it edges it, but I wouldn't fight anyone over it. I think they're both incredible. You know what, Benno? They're both so incredible that when you look at the matches, you take Sean, you take Bret. If it's me, I'm giving them 60 minutes at WrestleMania. What could possibly go wrong?
It can only work out. The 2 best wrestlers in the world wrestling each other. Sign me up. Again, thank God we don't have to review it, unless you choose it as a 5-star match review. But yeah, I'd probably, for me, I'd pip it with Sean and Jeff. But maybe we can have a conversation about that in a housekeeping coming up, maybe with a bit of time to ruminate. I'd only rewatch this today. Maybe I'll have a bit of a think about it. But fantastic match, well worth. It gets kind of obviously, like I say, we've read The Torch at the time, and The Torch at the time kind of puts this show over as a 1-match show. I don't think it is. I think it's a good show all in all, but I think this match is the reason why people should maybe skip The Last Day in Your House and listen to us talk, or just pick the bits out from what we talked with The Last Day in Your House, and do live through it, I suppose, with us. This one, watch the whole show, but this match is the reason to watch it. And I should say as well, there is a post-match to come as well, because like you said, Bret can't have all the Bret has this incredible world-class match that's very different, and again the style of it very different to anything you've saw so far in 1995. There's clearly a sea change coming, but that sea change does involve other characters, as we have a moment backstage as Big Daddy Cool Diesel storms in on a promo with Undertaker and Paul Bearer, as he's not happy that Undertaker has stolen his thunder like they're stealing Bret's thunder, and he wants the next shot against Bret. As like I say, it had been announced, hadn't it, that from Vince on commentary, that it was Rumble 96 where it was going to be, as we do get to see Undertaker getting the next shot against Bret.
Yeah, I thought this booking was interesting, because this is the 3rd time in a row that they've announced the next challenger before you know the winner. So they said Bret was going to fight the winner of Diesel versus Bulldog, and then they said Bulldog was going to fight the winner of Diesel versus Bret, and now they've said Undertaker's going to fight the winner of Bulldog versus Bret. They've always had that next challenger lined up, no matter who wins. And that's almost rankings, isn't it? That's almost sort of saying, and speaking
feature of the time.
And speaking of AEW and kind of like the things that you would want from them, I have to admit, like, I might not be an Undertaker guy, but Diesel Undertaker is kind of one of those hot hands that you go with when you still can. It's, we never got Punk and Omega. We're going to have to wait for Punk and Cody and hope that it actually happens this time. But
in the
Punk and Omega is,
it's crazy.
Yeah. Punk and Omega is the one. And I'm not comparing these two as like for like. But Diesel and Undertaker is almost as big as it gets. And you might have never got there. And they got there. And they start lining it up for WrestleMania. And I do quite like the book in there.
I like the early nod to obviously what will be Diesel's last WrestleMania match before his last match the month after that we'll be covering. But yeah, and it's just it makes sense on every level, doesn't it? It's like, yeah, people might laugh at that comparison, but like just looking at it visually, we don't like The Undertaker, but him and Nash both standing eye to eye. You know what I mean? They're both tall. It's like, oh my God, yeah, I never thought about that. What if Diesel and The Undertaker had a match? It's good. And they're both high-level stars. It's not just 2 rando tall guys on the roster facing each other. You can see the money, can't you, in it? And you can, I love the teasing of it. And I love, again, like, things to learn, like modern wrestling-wise. I always like that about this WWE period. I think it's something Cornette will push for backstage, and Pritchard would actually, to his credit, push for. Most pay-per-views, even if they didn't outright say it, I always felt like you knew the main event, and there was always a match somewhere in the upper mid-card where you go, okay, that's Sid versus whoever, or Vader versus whoever. they get their big win because they were going to be the next challenger the month after. It's not as on the nose as some of Tony Khan's booking, where it's like you don't see someone for years and then they randomly win a match on Collision. Fast forward to the week after Dynamite, guess what? They're getting a world title shot. It's a lot more thought through than that. It's like, they're just keeping it in, reminding you that this is a push commodity who is a threat, who's also beat another top name, who, is going to be getting the next big title shot. It's smart. You don't have to do pure rankings to make this stuff make sense. Like, I like that a lot. And I like that it matters to Diesel. I like that he's thinking about the world title, even if he's not getting, he's not in the Rumble title match. And obviously it pays off with the story stuff they do, but that's important too.
No, it's, again, storytelling and the preservation and protection of the world title, even in like a down period, for like never lose sight of that as your North Star. That's Cody uses that phrase, and it's true. Everything should still pivot around that world title. I have only one observation left to make, Benno, before we do wrap this up, and I'm glad it's about paying respect to Bret Hart. And you pointed out in your review there was quite a lot of cuts to Diana. Well, I have one of the reasons why, because I was watching for it specifically in this review. The ECW fans in the front that have been rabble-rousing over the course of the evening decide to pretty much just blow their proverbial load in the main event. You get signs that say Mikey rules, Sabu greater than WWF, Diesel sucks, 911, Hulk rules, and I think it might even say WCW Nitro in little letters, right? Just to be rebellious.
All right, I like that. That's good.
And last but not least, Bret Hart equals family disgrace, right? And
seems harsh.
One of the points they cut to the split screen, you've got a zoom in on Diana, and you've got a zoom in on, I think Bulldog's got Bret in like a tight chin lock. And the reason those cameras are zoomed in is because you can see a steward come and just take armloads of signs from the fans, at which point you hear boos and ECW chant.
I didn't catch that.
More boos, and the audience are like, these idiots booing the Bulldog or something like that. And it's brilliant, because you can just see this like arena security walking off with these armload of white poster board. They've all been confiscated.
Vince is probably even more fuming because he's trying to kayfabe it and say, "Oh, I gotta go for a wide shot to not show the Bret blood," and all it's showing is more signs. It's like the opposite of what you want, isn't it? Oh, I didn't realise that. Yeah. Brilliant. They do a good job of covering up, too fair, in the edit, but it's still very much ECW territory. But yeah, that's the main event. That's the post match, and I did enjoyable show. Enjoyed it in the dark period. Positive signs to come in the World Wrestling Federation, and fun one to chat today, mate.
Indeed. And I suppose ahead of us moving into a new year, 1996, Benno, another favourite year of ours. I guess if people want to catch up on all of 1995, as of right now, it is all available on our Benno and Hamflett podcast feed. It's available on Spotify, on YouTube, wherever you get them. And as Benno mentioned earlier on, if you want to leave us a 5-star review, that's very helpful. It helps more people find this podcast, helps us get us up the podcast charts. And in return, within that 5-star review, if you leave a little comment requesting anything from the new generation era that we might not cover in these In Your House podcasts, we'll be happy to record it. We've done stuff from Raw in 1993, in 1995. We've covered a lot of Jeff, a lot of Diesel, a lot of Bret. But anything from that period of time is fantastic. Or, for that matter, if you fancy a bit of the punker, he's a favourite of mine and Benno, or anything else that is maybe outside of the typical GRAPPL and WhatCulture coverage bandwidth, we're more than happy to do it in exchange for that ever-valuable 5-star review. So thank you for joining us for 1995. We are super, super hyped to New Year, same house.
There you go. New Year, same us. But yeah, looking forward to that. Obviously, next month we'll have our next housekeeping, which, as Michael said, get your 5-star match review in. You might have your one featured. We're loose with it. We're open-minded to matches that fit what we're up to as well. Although we've got a couple penciled in, we might do. And it is on to the 1986 In Your Houses, the free-for-alls, and In Your House 6. So very much looking forward to that. But in the meantime, Michael, do you want to let the people know where they can follow you on the internet this week?
They can find me on Twitter /X at Michael Hamflett, and indeed live and in person if you go to whatculture.com/tickets, where I feel like I can safely, much like WWF in 1995, let you know that tickets will almost certainly still be available for our very dumb and very ambitious world tour. Our sort of member of the What Culture team, we are going on a world tour following the WWE house show tour around in the UK. We will be in Manchester, Belfast, Glasgow, and London. If WWE is in town, we will be too, and you will be able to go to our show with plenty of time to go to WWE if you're going. If you're not going to WWE, but you fancy hanging out with a bunch of wrestling fans, our shows are the best place to get hyped. Have a drink, have a good time, have a laugh with us on stage. And then April the 18th, we're going to be in Las Vegas for WrestleMania weekend with the biggest and, again, most ambitious and daftest SmackDown watch party in all of Las Vegas at the HyperX Arena. Tickets for all of those shows are available. Simon Miller is going to be there. It's going to be a great time. We're going to be doing live podcasts, live stage versions of all the daft stuff you see on our channels. And tickets can be found at whatculture.com/tickets.
Superb. Well, I've got not too much to plug this month. Obviously, next month we'll have a lot of WrestleMania coverage going on GRAPPL. So I'll just plug Michael. Yeah, come to Belfast. I'm going to be there at the Limelight. Say hello to me if you see me in the crowd as well. I've heard the Punkers in town for the WWE show, but I think really the real draw was he was going to get to see you and Sidge live. So maybe you'll catch that. Maybe just the four of us could go for Steph can come. The five of us can go for a nice coffee in Black Sheep Coffee. Maybe you'll find us. I believe it's a punk favorite. Who knows? Who knows who you might see?
I'll get a Pepsi Max cherry on the side just to suck up, Like.
Oh, Bob and Bert for breakfast as well, mate. High recommendation. Ooh. I reckon you'd be into it. Good American shite. You'd like. So yeah, spot us all in Belfast coming up, and yeah, definitely follow Michael for all that good stuff. You can also follow me on Twitter at BensonRichardE. But yeah, until next time, thanks for the house.